7:01. We'll open the select board meeting for tonight, January 13th, at the town hall. We have 4. At this moment, we have 4. I imagine we'll end up having 5 audio recording devices and 1 video recording device. So we're working through getting the bills paid. You want to get that done before we start this public hearing?
I think there were a couple of questions.
All right, that's fine.
So do you want to hold till the hearing?
That's fine. We don't want to hold up. We don't want to hold up the community development block grant hearing, but if we wait for Mary to get out here, I think she has some notes associated with that. So, yeah, we need the warrant.
I don't remember seeing a final report about that bill.
They just came the other day.
They did?
I think there's a box out, and then, Lynn, isn't there a box of the audit reports that came just the other day?
I know, yeah, I haven't seen it.
They gave me one when I came through the
Oh.
office.
Then they must be here.
I think they showed up last Thursday.
Oh, all right. So there wasn't one in our folder, so that's why I didn't have one.
That was an easy question.
And this is your concern ongoing with the sanding and salting for our icy roads?
It's pretty much 25% of the budget in one stroke. The alternative is.
So I wonder how many copies of that report they gave us? So we could each take one, I presume.
Why don't I go look in the box? I know where it is. Or I know where it was.
How are they? Weird, huh? Come back and throw it a different color. Brian, the 2 bills, George Propane, they both look similar to me, although the prices are different. Is one for the fire department and one for town hall, even though they both say the same thing?
I think so. The 2 bills I've seen, one of them was for the new heater at the fire station. Yeah, this is the heater for the fire station. So,
I don't know. Do you think I should read one?
unless you need it.
We have a gas line for fire department and town hall.
Don't take me seriously, guys. It's a voter report.
And then there's this.
This one is straightening out the 3 options here, the 3 zones.
Actually, it doesn't matter, this goes, it's supposed to be.
So instead of another tank, what they're doing is they're going
Yeah, this
to,
one.
I know,
so that will change the consumption, won't it? So when you do budgeting.
I got like,
Well, they're going to put meters on both lines, so there's a trans and usage.
Oh. Do they do that at the tank or like when it's coming into the building? Huh, oh, I didn't know they could do that. Well, that makes sense. Oh, okay. I was asking, because there were 2 and they were doing
Yeah.
and they both said that. You know what I was asking him, because it says the gas line from the fire department tank to town hall. He said they're putting on 2
Meters?
ways to measure the consumption, even though
I
there's
see.
just the one tank.
So is it a split cost, or is it?
Well, this was to use those offices. To break out those 3 offices into 3 zones. So because somewhere I was warm and somewhere I was cold, so now they're coming
Okay.
I believe that the LP bill will probably be a single bill coming from propane. It'll be the town's responsibility to allocate it based on the meter readings. It'll be the town's responsibility.
2 meters?
There'll be 2 meters. George will just be filling the tank and billing is for filling the tank, I believe.
Yeah, one bill, and then we've got the meters to split out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gotcha. Our favorite state is from MJ's office.
You have some notes for me on starting that hearing?
It's right after the agenda.
Tom, you sent another, this is just the management letter.
That's the management letter. I think there's a bigger,
Thicker one in there?
thicker one. But that's what I took home to read.
Well, I was asking Brian, I was saying they're putting on 2 meters. The bill will come from Georgia Payne, and we'll have to use the meters to break out the expense, because part of it's fire department. I mean, that was just, well, I don't know if they have to pay the cost, so it's really, I mean, the issue is fire department.
Right.
But if they've got meters, it's a matter of reading them and sharing.
Read them and wait.
We can share.
All right. All right.
The change will allow us to separate the bills between this furnace and the boiler too, which today we don't know how much either one uses, and now they'll be separated, we'll be able to track that.
This one oil?
This one will continue to be oil, yeah.
At this point. All right, so we're going to start with this community development block grant public hearing. I'm going to read the legal notice. The town of Ashfield will hold a public hearing on Monday, January 13th, 2014 at 7 p.m. in the Selectmen's Meeting Room. I didn't realize that was the name of this room, but that's what it is today. At the Ashfield Town Hall, 412 Main Street, Ashfield, in order to solicit public response to the submission of a fiscal year 2014 Massachusetts Community Development Block Grant application to the Department of Housing and Community Development on behalf of the towns of Ashfield, Heath, Hawley, and Chalmers. A snow date has been scheduled for Tuesday, January 21st, but we're not going to need that. The purpose of this meeting will be to discuss the contents of the application, which will include 2 regional activities: a housing rehab program and a social service program. Representatives from Franklin County Regional Housing and Redevelopment Authority will be present at the hearing to discuss the application and programs. The town of Heath, which is the lead, will contract with HRA to administer the Community Development Block Grant Program. The town encourage residents to attend the meeting where any person or organizations wishing to be heard will be afforded the opportunity. The town of Ashfield is an equal opportunity provider. All right? So I read the notice, and Nate,
Yes.
you want to come up front?
Sure.
So maybe you can talk a little bit about
Yeah, absolutely.
where we are.
I'm not sure if everyone's had a chance to pick up informational handouts about 2 programs we're going to be discussing tonight. So, that's okay with you.
That's great.
I'm going to start at this side. This is the housing rehab, and this is the Keeping Warm social service program. So everyone can kind of make sure that they each get a copy of the sheet of paper. And I'm also going to pass around the sign-in sheet. The sign-in sheets are very important for us when we're submitting the grant application, because one of the things that we really want to demonstrate is community participation and discussion. So the more people that we can have at these meetings and that we can show in our application, attend at the meetings, the better.
Yeah.
Where's the best place for me to?
What's that?
Where's the best place for me to?
I think right where you are.
Okay.
If you're close to me, then when the fan's blowing in my good ear, I can hear you.
Okay. So just as a sort of primer, community development block grant funds are distributed through the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. They're primarily focused on benefiting people of low or moderate income, which is defined by HUD as people who earn 80% or less than the area median income for Franklin County. And you'll see on some of your program packet materials what those income cutoffs are. And so the two that we are writing a grant for in the regional application are housing rehabilitation. And the housing rehab program is for homeowners or investor owners of rental units, or homeowners who also own a rental unit, to address building codes, safety code, sanitary code violations on their property. The way the process works is you would make an application to the housing authority, we would determine your income eligibility. A housing rehab specialist like myself would go to your property, we'd walk through it, we'd identify as many code violations, things that need to be addressed as possible. We write that up, and then we put that up to bid. And with the end goal of a program like this is to keep people in their homes, but to make them safer, to make them more energy efficient, to address things that have been going on for a long time in terms of the deterioration of their properties. In the town of Ashfield, we're writing for a total of 5 units. We based the unit breakdown on our existing waiting list. So that's what we are able to demonstrate in our application as the need. We typically end up doing more than the number of units that we write for, because inevitably some of these projects don't require $30,000. So if we don't do 5 projects that are slated at $35,000, we might end up doing 8 or 10 projects of varying amounts in the size of the loan. In terms of the actual application process and the program design, you can see that on the back of your sheet. We sort of rank all of the applications and properties depending on the amount of applications we receive. We'll go out and do sort of an abbreviated home inspection, get an idea as to the severity of the building code needs, and that'll be included as part of our priority ranking. The other one thing I'd like to sort of note that's on here is what these loans actually are. They're essentially liens against your property. You don't make monthly payments, there's no interest that accrues on them. And the way that the financial mechanism actually works is if you're in your house for a period of 15 years after you receive your loan, half of the loan is forgiven at the end of that 15 years. The remaining half is treated as a lien that will be paid off at the times of sale or transfer of the property. So does anyone have any questions in particular about the housing rehab program?
So you said these would just be the ones that people that have already come to you and have filled out?
No.
So these would be open to anybody?
Yes. We base the numbers based on what we have, what we're showing for a need in the town of Ashfield. But no, we would actively solicit applications from Ashfield residents. Sir.
Representing the Ashfield Community Hall, there was some mention made earlier on, I believe, that we would be eligible to receive funds under this grant.
Yes. And I think, my understanding, I wasn't involved in those meetings, but I did discuss that with MJ Adams, who's our Director of Community Development. And I think the problem was there's needs assessments on community buildings that need to be completed in order for DHCD to consider those viable projects, and that those needs assessments hadn't been completed yet.
Could you expand on that? I'm having trouble hearing you because it's cold here or something, but
Sure.
Say that again. I happen to know a person who's a director there also, and I know they're very concerned about a feasibility study
Right.
for handicap access,
Yes.
seniors, etc.
Right.
And I see that they're ranked as number 1 under prioritization. How does that money work? I understand the housing rehab, but are you going for additional funds to the housing rehab?
So what we can do is we can include that in our application because it doesn't meet the threshold for how strong the application would be to do the accessible entrance to the community center. In order for it to be what we call project ready, it has to have a study that's done in accordance with the Massachusetts Architectural and Access Review Board. And so once they've done that study, the town has done that study and has shown that it meets whatever qualifications that MAAB requires, then it could become an eligible activity for us to apply for block grant funds for.
That's not a municipal building,
Right,
that's a private building.
yes.
So why would the town have to do that? Just because the town funds coming through the block grant program?
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, you said that the town would have to prepare this report.
Prepare the report, correct.
Well, why would the town, if it's a not-for-profit
Or
organization?
a privately fundraised, the town wouldn't necessarily have to pay for the report, but the community center itself, its members might be required to pay for that report. A private funding source essentially would need to do that sort of due diligence work before it could be considered an eligible activity for the block grant funds.
But the reason I'm asking in particular is, under the project, it says make community hall handicap accessible. When I happen to know for a fact, and Doug's here on that board too, that they weren't looking to make it accessible, they were looking for a feasibility study, the exact thing you're talking about.
Okay.
So architecturally speaking, they wanted funds before, to assess the situation, you know, and to do that. So I'm wondering if this was incorrect in its description, and because of that, you're looking for the study, when in fact they're looking for the study originally.
I see. I really don't know. I just know that the housing rehab and the social services were the strongest activities for the block grant application. I think when MJ arrives later on, she might be able to provide better context for that.
My recollection of the last time MJ was here, and I believe it was the night that you were home waiting for the telephone to ring,
Okay.
was that, and what dissuaded me of making that was going to be a primary goal, is that a report had to be generated before we could get a grant to do the feasibility study, and yet there was there really wasn't a lot of promise that any money would become available to actually do the project.
Yep.
So, you know, we think about it, we kind of study it a little bit, we spend a lot of money on that sort of thing, but yet it's not any more accessible 3 years down the road after all that money's being spent than it is today. And so I don't know if that answers your question, Doug, but that, correct me, I mean, did you have the same, that was, because I remember Ricky was here,
Yes,
and we were discussing that, and that was
we needed,
what I walked away from here.
we needed that feasibility study that he's talking about to ascertain one or more options.
But there wouldn't be any money to actually do the work after you did the feasibility
There was no
study.
guarantee of that, would have to apply for a grant.
Didn't even seem
Step
to
two.
me, didn't even seem to me at that point that, from what MJ was saying, that there was the promise.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll bring it up if she comes in,
Yeah.
if I could.
That's fine.
Just ask her the
That's
question.
fine, that's fine. Because it was on our list when we had the
Yeah.
first hearing.
Yeah.
Any other questions on this first program, the housing rehab? All right,
If you had, or weren't aware of any other needs to come to code, and let's say you wanted to replace windows, but they decided that for some reason you needed a code compliance somewhere else, would that also mean that you'd have to do both in order to get your windows?
Yes, I think it would depend on the severity of the code violations, for one thing. If you had drafty, leaking windows, but you also had an actively leaking roof, we wouldn't address one thing and ignore another thing. Actually, and part of what the application says is that when we go into a home, we try to address all code violations that are identified.
So someone would actually make that determination.
Yeah, because it says the applicant's structure must be brought into code compliance.
Right. In some cases, there is a little bit more flexibility, especially when you're looking at historic structures. there's a little bit more flexibility, and we work in consultation with the Massachusetts Historical Commission when we bump into those kind of things.
Okay.
Okay. And our proposed social service program is called Keeping West County Warm. And this is sort of a program that was developed to fill a niche between people who are on fuel assistance and run out of benefits before the winter's over, and people who are not on fuel assistance because they're not income eligible, but they're also low and moderate income and need some type of fuel supplement to help them get through the winter. And so what this is doing is it's filling in that gap for people who are already receiving fuel assistance, and also people who are not eligible for fuel assistance but need an additional supplement to get through the winter. And the way that it works is, if you look at the activity sheet, if you're on fuel assistance or eligible for fuel assistance, the Keeping Western Massachusetts Warm program would provide you with up to $500 in delivered fuel oil, being propane, wood, or heating oil. If you're not eligible for fuel assistance, but you fall beneath 80% area median income, you're eligible for up to $350 worth of delivered fuel oil during the course of the winter. And this activity will actually be run through Community Action, who also manages the fuel assistance program. So if someone is completely new to all this and doesn't know whether they're eligible for fuel assistance or whether they're not but eligible for this other benefit, they can just go directly to Community Action, and when they do their intake, they'll be able to figure out which program you're eligible for.
Is there a figure for this, did you call it medium or median?
For median income?
Yep.
Yes, what we have on here is we don't actually have the median income on here. We have 80% area median income. So you can see that on the back of the housing rehab information packet. It breaks it down from a family of 1 up to a family of 8, what the eligibility would be for area median income.
You have a different set of figures on the heating.
Right, so the heating eligibility is to be eligible for fuel assistance, your income level has to be lower. I believe that number is 60%, I'm not entirely sure. And so the non-fuel assistance eligibility is between your 60% area median income and your 80% area median income. Because right now there's no program that serves those people who run into problems paying for their fuel but aren't eligible for existing fuel assistance programs. So that's really what this social service program is targeting.
Any other questions? Comments?
I'm
So-
looking through the documentation, and it looks like this is going to be for the 2014 heating system. So if all the money they asked for is used up, is there another opportunity to have another grant? And how soon do you have to get that one in place to stay in a place where the next year you still have some funding for
To have
fuel
another,
assistance? Yes. Because if you use it all up, there's nothing for 15, 16.
right.
So are we asking for enough money for the fuel assistance to cover 2 years?
But as of right now, it's enough to cover just 1 year.
That was Jay.
And actually, it's Peter Wingate, we were just talking about the Keeping West County Warm Program here.
Excellent.
And the question came up as to whether the funding was sufficient to go beyond 2014. And it's my understanding that the social service program was written just for the 2014 winter.
It's written for the 2014-15 winter, but if there are funds left over, it can start up and run the early part of the following heating season. The grant ends up in December 2015. So then there's any residual funds.
Right.
They'll be available at the beginning of the next heating season.
Let's pretend we used it all up. It's taken quite a bit of work to get this far, to put in the grants and everything. Are we asking for enough money? Should we be asking for more to have 2 years' worth of heating, keeping warm assistance instead of just 1 year and maybe there'll be some left over? Because otherwise you'd almost have to get started for the next go-round of asking for this, and my guess is that's not easy to do. I mean, you've done a lot of work to get us this far.
We have, you're right.
So should it be bigger? Should it be for 2 years instead of 1 year?
That's a good question. I can share with you that, we're always trying, I'm sorry, I'm MJ Adams, I'm the Director of Community Development from Franklin County Housing and Redevelopment Authority, and this is Peter Wingate, he's with Community Action. And I apologize for being late, we had another public hearing, we didn't do another community. I think this is a new piece that we're trying to figure out because it's actually sort of a gap. There's a gap between what LIHEAP can provide and who we can assist with block grant money. So our goal is to get out there, and I know that in working with community action staff as we were defining this, they were looking, and Peter can speak more specifically to this, they were looking at the number of people who might be eligible for it out here in the West County that aren't taking advantage of the LIHEAP. So we're looking to help with their outreach to get out there and make sure we're pulling in folks who might be eligible for it and getting them into their program. If they come and apply to us, they'll actually be applying directly to community action to access those funds. If they're LIHEAP eligible, they could use the LIHEAP funds, but there's a sense that this could strengthen LIHEAP's outreach effort out here. And the second piece of that.
I was going to say, I think the bigger issue though is that we can only apply for a grant within a given time. So we can't ask for social service funds over a period of 3 years in one grant application. Because the grant has finished deadlines. In this case, like MJ said, December 31st, 2015 would be when the grant ends. So we can't ask for like a 3 or 4 year grant program. We can look at reapplying for grant funds if the program proves successful, or like MJ said, if we can roll over funds that weren't spent out. But yeah, they won't let us write a grant.
What we'd really be depending on is, as the state goes through their ugly budget process to see if they have more, if they approve more money from whatever source to fund this program for the next fiscal year. Is that, and I'm correct that this money that we're talking about here is supplemental money?
It is supplemental.
It, for the most part, would be for someone that's already getting assistance, but that assistance falls short.
Right. It would be, if you're receiving LIHEAP, it would provide for one emergency fuel delivery at the end of the heating season. When you have a no heat emergency and you have delivered fuel. Your LIHEAP funds have run out, you're out of heat, you're not protected by shut-off protections because of you don't have natural gas or electricity, so you're really out of heat. And you might turn to unsafe heating, an unsafe way to heat your home, or really just be without heat, and that could prompt homelessness. So we're just looking to give that LIHEAP family a little boost at the end of the heating season after their fuel assistance has run out. The other piece of it is the people who are not LIHEAP eligible, that they earn too much to get LIHEAP, but they're still within our income range for our low and moderate benefit, the block grant income guidelines for low and moderate benefit. There's a gap there of families who, like I said, are eligible for block grant funds but are not eligible for LIHEAP fuel assistance. And the goal is to give them a little push, help in the beginning of the heating season. They would get probably about 50% of what LIHEAP would get over the course of the heating season. And then at the end of the heating season, they're actually eligible for a Good Neighbor Fund from Salvation Army, but that usually isn't up and running until February. So this is really a gap on both ends, to give the LIHEAP eligible, an emergency fuel delivery at the end of the season, and people who aren't LIHEAP eligible, a little assistance at the beginning of the heating season, just to make it more manageable for them.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
MJ, I missed one meeting, so I'm trying to catch up, okay? But I understand the rehab program clearly, and you guys are going for 179 for Ashfield in that amount. How much is the fuel assistance side of the grant that you're looking for?
It's roughly $74,000.
How much?
$74,000?
74,000.
Yes.
For all 4 communities, yes.
For all 4 communities?
Yes, not for each community, for all 4.
So I guess my question is, do you guys go through a sort of a prioritization that if someone needs their septic tank work done or their house roof repaired versus someone about to run out of fuel who can't afford fuel, but there's not enough money in the $75,000 bucket between the 4 towns, do you scrap one of the 5 housing opportunities, or do you hold tight to it, or what's the process for that?
We typically have a little ability at the end of the grant to move a little bit of money back and forth. We also have the Housing Rehab Revolving Loan Fund that we can supplement housing rehab program. The grant activity with the Housing Rehab Revolving Loan Fund, so if there are loan repayments that have come in from Ashfield, that sort of refills the bank account, and we can use that and provide additional lending. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It does.
So when does the grant have to be submitted?
Middle of February.
Valentine's Day.
Very romantic.
Did you want to ask her about the community hall?
Well, I did, but then Doug left, and he's on the board, and he must understand it, and I don't want to waste any more time here.
Well,
You know, so
we had a quick little discussion. I mean, Ron had missed the meeting, and I was trying to address, he was asking about the handicapped access that we discussed last time at the community hall. And the way that I remembered our last discussion was that if there was a report that justified there might be money available for a feasibility study, but there wasn't a whole lot of promise that there would be money to actually get anything done.
That's, the challenge we had in requesting any funding for that project in this grant application was that we weren't able to locate the transition plan, the self-assessment, the town of Ashfield self-assessment transition plan for the handicap accessibility. And as part of the application process, DHCD asks the status of that if you're looking for handicap accessibility. Since you were asking for some sort of funding to support handicap accessibility in a non-municipally owned building, you would want to make sure that your eggs were in order on your own responsibilities to take care of municipal buildings. So I saw that as a bit of a threshold issue about not being able to move forward and do planning work on the community hall, handicap accessibility, because I would imagine that the first question that DHCD staff would say is, where's the town on the properties that they own themselves in terms of handicap accessibility? The second piece is the only thing we could have requested at the point was some planning money, which was a little planning money that might be able to get you somebody who could do some feasibility or what.
that's what they were looking for, I know.
Yeah.
But this transition plan that you're talking about, is that a plan that's back in our vault somewhere or
I
something?
hope so, yes.
And in that transition plan, it says what our goals are and if we've met our goals?
All it does is ask, my understanding of it is that it was a planning process the towns were asked to go through to assess their own handicap accessibility on the buildings that they own. So someone wrote up a little report about how handicap accessible this building was, and how handicap accessible your town library is, and any other.
And when was that, do you think?
It was-
You don't know, you haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it, and that was the challenge, is
Yeah.
that,
And I have looked, I have located it, I've found some other things, and you just mentioned it's due mid-February. Does that mean there is more time to look for that, or have we gone in a different direction?
I honestly think at this point that it's too, we're really past the point of where we can include that in the grant application.
Well, isn't it, the deadline is Wednesday?
The deadline for the grant application is February 14th, but
No, isn't there a drop dead date on Wednesday?
no,
here?
it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow is the
Oh.
community development strategy is due, and that's your planning document that says this is the planning process that you went through. And it's clear that item, the handicap accessibility, is in that document. The question is whether or not we would include a planning activity in the grant that would be submitted in February. And like I said, what I've been looking for is that transition plan and self-assessment, which is a necessary submission when you're asking for any sort of funding around handicap accessibility with the block grant process.
For non-municipal buildings especially.
Well,
Especially.
for anything, for handicap accessibility in the community.
So that's something we have to earmark as fine if we're going to be addressing with any related handicap accessibility. We're going to need that
And you
transition.
could very well have done it. We just couldn't put our hands on it.
The reason that I brought it up in the first place was under the project in this chart here, it says, make community hall handicap accessible. But I happen to know what they were looking for, just because I happen to know one of the directors, was money for a feasibility study.
Right.
Not to make it accessible. They knew that it was one
Right.
foot before another here, so.
And Ron, that was written up prior to any of that. That's a piece of a prior community development plan that was carried forward. So that wasn't specifically addressing this piece of it.
Okay. Well, enough said. I've taken up too much time. And I guess that becomes a very important thing for other buildings too, is this transition plan. And I think we should, if we haven't done it, we should do it.
We should find it or
Do it.
develop it.
So my question would be, if we did one, we didn't just sit here and say, oh goody, let's do a transition plan. Somebody had told us we needed one. And if they told us we needed one, we must have had to file it with somebody. So who would we have filed it with as another source of where that document may be? Probably Lynn Shudak at Rural Development, I would think, since he's the person we tend to work with on accessibility issues.
I would be thinking that it would be the Massachusetts Architectural Access,
But it could be that too.
or handicap, Office of Disability and Handicap.
Because if we can't find our original,
Right.
and if they have their records on file for the town, maybe they could just pull it out of their folder and send us a copy.
Yeah, and that's what I would do first. Although it's not abundantly clear to me that towns of your size had to do them. The question
Right.
was, and that's where it's sort of squishy. If you did it, and it's clear that in our conversations that you've clearly made efforts to make it handicap accessible, your building's handicap accessible. Like Mary described to me, the number of things that you've done, even though you might not have written it down into a plan, you've done it. And so the question is, what's the status of this original plan? And yes, you can tick off that you've done several things to make progress on it.
And there's no limit on the time.
My understanding is no, that there just needs to be some sort of planning process that the town is taking around handicap accessibility. And I'll admit to you that I'm sort of new on this piece too.
Seems though we did get some grant money to put these lifts in, and that would have been, part of that would be to have that plan.
Yeah.
Good point. Too.
Was it block grant funds?
It was during a few months, maybe I wasn't paying all that much attention.
Years ago.
Did,
It was a while ago.
didn't we use a block grant for Main Street? When we did Main Street and curbs and all
The
that?
sidewalks,
Wasn't some of that wasn't that a block
that
grant?
was 15 or 16 years ago now, wasn't it?
That's probably the last one we got, I think.
Well, I think these lifts went in about the same time.
Yeah, gives you a timeline then.
So, But where that money came from, I mean, what you're referring to was, that was through Mass Highway and so forth with some of that work. So, but if there isn't one, I bet it's not impossible to make a newer, bigger, better version of it.
Well, and one of the things that I saw as I was looking at other communities that have requested funding for handicap accessibility is they actually use block grant money to do their their transition plans and their self-assessments. So,
That's
but like, we could never find out the status of Ashfield, so it felt unresolved, and it didn't feel like we should, at this point in time, be putting energy in trying to do an activity that might get tossed out on threshold because we didn't have this plan.
And just my 2 cents on that is, I don't really get too excited about grants that just study stuff and try to give you an idea when there's nothing to actually follow through on getting the project done.
Oh,
I mean, you know, there's enough people in town that you can stand around and scratch your head and pull up your pants and you'll figure it out. You know, 3 or 4 guys. I mean, that was a...
so if we had the transition, and if we had the feasibility study, what kind of money can we then ask for? Would it be another block grant that you would be putting in for, or does it have to be done some other way?
If you had the transition plan, what I would, we were gonna ask for planning money, number one, because we didn't have a lot of money to ask for the first place. But I didn't know exactly where you were in your planning process, whether or not you'd had an architect or anybody look at the building, if you had any sort of semblance. If you had some sketches or had those folks from the town sort of stand around and sketch out some plans, and had been something written down or drafted, then you could take that and say, maybe we should ask for some design money.
Right, so I'm trying to get to the point where would we ask for money to actually now install whatever it is that was supposed to be to have handicap accessibility in the community?
If you get to the point where you have bid-ready plans and specs and a cost estimate, then you are ready to ask for construction money with block grant.
Does it have to be a new block grant?
Well, it would have to be a different one than this.
But would it need to be tied to something else at the same time, like these two things are tied together, as opposed to standing on its own,
Yes.
just Ashfield? Or would it be tied into some more comprehensive?
If it were
Application.
Ashfield applying only for handicap accessibility for this, the community hall, you could do it as a standalone. In terms of the relative criteria, Ashfield is considered what's called a community development 2 community, which means you're not as needy as the community development 1 communities. So you can apply as what they call a community development fund 2 committee on your own, or a community on your own for this project. But like I said, you'd probably want to have bid-ready plans and specifications at a cost estimate before you apply for that.
Or tie it in with something else and some other pieces with some other group of towns?
Right, if you were applying in a block grant and you had bid-ready plans and specs would give you the place you needed to be in order to put that in as a construction activity in a regional grant.
Thank you.
Okay.
So next year, this time, we could choose not to join with other towns and say, MJ, we want to go after this specific thing, period,
Yes.
right? Or would we not be given that choice? Because clearly, we want to stay on top of the housing
Right.
situation, rehab stuff, and I would assume some, the fuel assistance. So would it be on top of that? Would it be, leave that in place, here you are filing the same thing again next year for the next year, and then we would say, we also want to go after this one? Or would we do that on our own without even talking to you?
I do know that CDF 2 communities were not eligible to get grants 2 years in a row.
Oh,
So you participated in this year's grant?
forget it.
You could probably not apply next year,
Yeah.
but you could apply the year after that as a standalone,
Oh, I see, 2 years in a row.
yeah,
But the competition for that money becomes quite different.
it is.
It's a little bit like Babe Ruth League and Major League Baseball.
Please don't give me a baseball analogy.
Yes.
Thank you.
CDF2 money is very competitive.
Very competitive.
Yes, it is.
All right. So, yeah, we're playing this game to try to advance, to
Sure. Sure, and what I would recommend is that the first thing you do is find out the status of your existing transition self-assessment, and then pick that up, refresh it, and move forward.
So if the grant is approved, when would you know and when would it start? Because fiscally, we're actually in fiscal year 14 now.
Right. You want to answer?
So we usually hear 4th of July, optimistically, and then we would get the grant really up and running sort of in the mid to late fall. But during the time of award, and when I say getting things up and going, is we could start receiving applications, going through them, doing that kind of work. But in terms of like signing construction contracts and doing that sort of thing.
But should people that, well, probably not in the winter, but maybe should people that haven't already applied for housing rehab, I mean, should they kind of be encouraged, like in this, I mean, might as well get their assessment done anyway.
I would encourage them right now, if there's people here who are interested, to get in a pre-application. And you can call our office to get one of those, so that if we're funded, you're getting an application sent out to you right away.
So can we put that in the Ashfield minutes? To, encourage people to start the application process? I mean, even if we don't get it, might as well do it.
we try to get lots of things put in the Ashfield.
Well, some other way then.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
But when you say 4th of July, you're saying there's a lot of times when it's Labor Day.
I think last year we actually heard in the middle of June, but we've also heard, like more like the middle of August, and we're sweating the whole time.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
What, do we need to sign something for you tonight to take away?
Yes, the community development strategy, but that's, I believe, next in the agenda?
Well, actually, it says we should take a vote. We should make a motion and take a vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, thank you,
Right.
for the, applying for this grant.
For applying for the grant. So I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to participate in the Heath 4-Town CDBG fiscal year 14 regional application as a joint community with Heath, serving as the lead community for the application and administered by the CDBG grant. Second. Any other comments, questions, discussion? You good? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, so we're going to adjourn that meeting. We got that business done.
Thank you. Can we find the sign sheet that was in?
Does everyone here sign the sign sheet?
All right, so the next piece of business on this,
And then maybe also, Tom,
yes,
when we try to notify people that they should start the application process, maybe also what they need in order to, what documents they need for their income, figure out their gross.
well, the HRA works
Well,
through.
yeah, we can take care of that. When people do their pre-applications, if they have specific questions about any of those applications, you can tell them that information.
Okay.
Seems if we're going to put something in, it would be nice to put something in there to also get in touch with community action regarding student assistance, period. To see if there's any help for people there that have not yet applied.
Do we need to send her away with something?
Yes,
Looks like they're getting ready to leave.
MJ's not, MJ, you're not getting ready to leave yet, because you're gonna stay here bothering us until we hand you that signed document.
Yes, you are.
What's that?
I've known her for 20 years, yes, you are correct.
Sorry.
Good, so I gotta find it in my,
It's happening, you know.
I know that. I know what that's about. That's it.
all right. So, we will email,
Like, yeah, I mean, you can tell
that's
that
great.
not everybody is, a lot of people don't know. They don't know that
Did,
so we need to publish, not you, but Ashfield, kind of get the word out.
there it is. The community development strategy, the updated community development strategy. Mary had gone through and updated ours, and then MJ, where did she disappear to? Oh, there. Behind that post is not a good spot for me to spot you. Had some updates and things that she wanted to expand on the language. Is that correct, MJ?
Yes, it is.
So, you had a chance to
Yes, I did.
go over it, both of you. Any thoughts on it?
One of my comments last week, and I don't know where we are on it, but I know that our planning board is diligently working on a senior, an overlay district for senior housing, a bylaw. And I thought it would be worth noting, even though it's not a formal bylaw at this point, you know, that we're working on that. Mary could give you all the information because it points to the need later on. That was my only comment.
So we're too, it's obviously it's too late to get any of that in.
I would say it is,
Yeah,
unless
yeah.
someone's got pretty quick fingers in the back there. But it's really, I guess, not that important. It just seems to be a pretty big deal right at this point in time. Had it been accepted, had it been a bylaw, it would be a big deal. But right now, it has to go to town meeting floor. So I don't know what that does to our position here, you know, to say that works more.
If we're talking about the community development strategy, and you'd like a little more language in your priorities about senior housing, that you're addressing senior housing through the zoning, through a zoning amendment, or is it a modification to your zoning?
Through a bylaw that would create an overlay district to accommodate senior housing, the need.
Would you like?
We have a model bylaw that is 12/18/2013. And I don't know if you want to include it, it seems pretty important to me.
And it's in the back section, but not in the narrative, so we're going to put that in the narrative.
I thought it was, I mean, you talk about all these other things, the space needs report, and all these different things like that, community development plan, and expanded housing opportunities, U.S. natural resources, and, you know, promote clean energy. But I guess if it isn't a fully done deal, maybe it doesn't belong in there. That's my only reservation.
In my copy that was sent out to you, it said under expand housing opportunities, it says, in order to increase the supply of affordable units in the town, Ashfield zoning bylaw allows accessory dwelling units by special permit. Would you like to add a line there that indicates that you're looking to do the overlay?
So it can be the line that's page 7 or something like it, that we're bringing a new revised senior housing bylaw to the annual town meeting in May of 2014.
So it's in the priority list in the back, so the
Yeah, maybe that's sufficient.
the front part would be the sort of the narrative
What
of the
we've
planning
done.
process.
Yeah. I guess
I
that's fine.
have a difficult time adding it in any more detail than
Yeah,
that,
'cause it's
because
not-
it isn't,
not
because it
real.
isn't a done deal.
Yeah, I agree.
We don't want it to be picked apart.
I agree.
Do you know when the meeting is, is a planning board meeting scheduled that we can have?
I just heard sometime in January, but I don't know any more.
I have a couple of things.
Go for it.
Page 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The paragraph that begins with promote clean energy. Second sentence. Ashfield has recently replaced first floor windows. That's not an accurate statement, and I would prefer to see accurate things in here. I think what we did is we added storm windows, for lack of a better description, to protect and add energy efficiency because they're covering architectural, historical windows. Brian, help me with some wording there that might sound better green community-wise, please.
One of the primary energy deficiencies in the main hall and upstairs are the windows. So having storm windows for that is one of the things that was identified in an energy audit. We just didn't have enough funding to support doing that with green communities funding.
So we haven't replaced any windows, and we've added storm, no.
Well, we have storm windows on all the office windows,
Right.
because that's heated.
Because the goal isn't to replace these, but to add something to
Right.
get an energy benefit, because they're architecturally,
Yeah.
historically, you
The
would.
historical issues require.
How about saying something in that vein, Paula, that says Ashfield has recently installed storm windows
In the town hall.
In the,
in the administrative offices of the town hall, something like that.
That's good. Somehow I thought we might want to explain why they're storm windows. Why aren't you getting new brand new windows and throwing old things out and putting in double pane windows and things? It's because they're covering this historical architectural windows to make better efficiency. So I didn't know if that needed to be there. So somebody understood what we're doing.
It just seems in that paragraph, you know, that we recently added first floor storm windows in the town hall.
For the administrative offices. Yeah, I think that's good because we've got more to do.
Because it goes on and talks about converting to improve the heating system to zone control, and the fire station, which that's totally accurate.
Well, I think in some of that zone control is, it's in the rules, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. So then the next paragraph, is that supposed to read that we are going to put out bicycle racks, or have they been out and put away for the winter and I never saw them?
We haven't gotten them yet. We're working on doing that for the spring.
Okay.
So some of, just to clarify, some of this language is straight from the last community development strategy that was done by, I believe, Chair Dave DeHert and Town Clerk Ann Dunn. And so I think I assumed there had been some racks at some point, because that was 2010. And they had written, that board had written, has placed bicycle racks.
There is one at the town beach.
I think there were a few put out.
It's the only one I'm aware of.
Was there one at the post office?
I think there's one up at the field. The field.
Oh, is there?
If it's accurate, that's fine. I just was not aware, and I thought it would be better to be more accurate if we really hadn't done any.
We have green community funding approved to do a number more in public places around town.
Good.
But I believe there were a few at that time, so that's what that.
Anything else, Paula?
Page 5, under resources, 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth bullet, the documents we signed in the summer with HCOG for solar energy. I don't know if it fits there. Do we need that anywhere in this document as something we've done to try to reduce expenses or get involved in solar energy?
It looks to me like that would be a separate bullet point to put at the bottom.
And the reason I didn't try to put it in yet is it is still in process. I get updates, but nothing is moved to a clear point yet.
But we signed everything on our side.
We did.
To do it. They maybe don't have it up and running, but we've committed.
We committed, but there is no finally approved project yet.
They haven't gone that far.
I would think that it would be all right to add one bullet point that says that we have signed the necessary documentation.
To participate.
Sign the documentation in agreement with, does that sound reasonable? Wrong?
Sure.
Because it's about solar energy.
It shows that you've done something, it shows that you did it.
Right. Thank you.
And that was a participation agreement in?
We actually participated through the Hampshire Council of Governments with, what do we, the lead community?
Yes.
On a solar project in Hadley.
Sponsoring, is that there? I can't remember, I think it was the sponsor, or sponsoring community. Or hosting.
Hosting, that's right.
So you're hosting
We're
solar
a
facilities?
Right, we're a host community for a project in Hadley.
For the
That's like-
proposed solar energy.
That's like me saying next weekend, MJ, there's gonna be a huge party at your house and I'm hosting, but it's gonna be at your house. Get it ready. Yes.
I read all the fine detail. Page 6. And this is more in terms of a question. Third up from the bottom, the big paragraph. And I'm glad Brian's here just to double check because they're talking about the firehouse, wastewater treatment plant. Did we do things at the library that we could include in this and the?
Well, we've done an
Another
audit,
library?
we're in the process of defining projects for the library to get state funding that the trustees are also paying for some of the, to implement some of the recommendations from the energy audit. So there's a list of stuff we're working on for the library, and I'm not aware that anything has actually been finalized yet.
So we could say maybe something and planning is in place for the,
Yeah,
To-
for a number
make
of,
headway.
for a list of energy efficiency
for the
projects for the library.
building library.
Building the line.
Page 8. The second line, the paragraph, when it's talking about social services. Services for persons, elders, people with disability. Given we're involved in this block grant we're applying for, it seems to me we're also interested in helping people low to moderate income. So I don't know if that belongs to the social services, but I think it's another part of the community.
So maybe a addressed by some of the low-income items in earlier blocks.
Well, the only reason I picked that one to the right is that the CDBG funds, so that's why I was going there. And that's what we were just signing,
Right.
so.
Right, so
to
for
include
instance,
low
on
moderate
6,
income.
where it talks about rehabilitation of housing, low and moderate income families, that also says CDBG.
Right. But then where I was using social services for the food aspect part.
It's on page number 6.
Does it
It's
cover
item
both
number
pieces?
3 is the energy assistance program.
Oh, okay,
Okay?
very good.
Okay.
If you don't need to repeat it again, that's fine.
So the only changes we've made are expansions. How many of them are there? 4?
Did Ron have any others?
Actually, there was one that I just saw now, on page 7, under the Ashfield Lake Dam, over on the project description. The safety rating isn't poor, it's fair, okay? Because after fair, it goes to unsatisfactory, and
Yes.
I don't want to be saying it's something that it's not.
Ah,
So it's just fair to satisfactory.
sorry.
And you will be glad to know that, well, I sit on a board of public works where we have a high hazard dam in poor condition, so be
Okay.
glad you're not in that planning process.
Oh, I did have one more. Page 2. Second paragraph. It's talking about different needs, space needs and all that. I was wondering if we want to include for Chief Dromey's parting comments to us about the availability of parking around the town hall that needs to be looked at as opposed to, there's nothing in planning, but it also deals with space of a different kind.
Boy, Paulette, I think that, I don't know how exactly to add that. I know exactly what you're saying, but it seems to me that a person reading that would take that all into account. I mean, sometimes I think some of these plans and so forth that are published are words for the sake of taking up space on paper. But it says this report was compiled by, talking about needs and assessment, town space needs and making recommendations about how existing facilities might be better utilized to meet current needs and make recommendations about future needs and potential community needs. I mean, I kind of think parking is part of that. I mean, that's,
It's okay,
you know, I mean, it's
just
that
came to mind because he was making such a point of it
I just,
as I read through this.
I mean, we've already pulled out the hitching posts for the stagecoach, so we ain't headway that way.
That's a shame.
That's a shame, right?
I got one
So
down.
how many changes have we got on here that,
So I counted 3 at the point that you're asking, unless I missed one. We pulled one back that we had talked about.
Right.
So I have one on page 4, installed store windows, etc. One on page 5, signed documents with HCOG Solar. One on page 6, planning in place to develop a list of energy projects for the library. And 7, we changed poor to fair in the description of the dam status. And
And we didn't need the one on 8 because you pointed out it was on the other page.
Yep.
Under,
so those are the ones that I have.
so you need this tomorrow?
Yeah, and I said I would day, tonight, make the changes and send it to you.
What do you
Actually,
need?
I've got my laptop, so I'm happy to sit back here and make the changes.
Go for it. We're never gonna turn away volunteer labor. We try to.
I would really
We
like, for all the
encourage-
work we've done to get to this point, I'd
Do you need
really
a
like,
signature on it before you leave? Is that the idea, or you just need us to vote on it?
I need you to vote on it.
Voting is easy.
We can do that.
Anybody want to make a motion? To endorse? That's what you want, is a motion to
Yes.
endorse.
Is the latest version December 23rd?
Yep.
Okay, as amended.
But do we, right,
Go
and do
for it.
we want to redate it to be
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
January 13th? So that would be another change on that?
Right.
I'm fine with that. You want to make
Sure.
that motion?
That's okay, no, I was just asking you about the date.
Okay, so are we looking to make a motion to accept it?
To endorse it.
To endorse.
Okay.
I think that would be the thing, to endorse the community. Why don't I do it? I'll make a motion that we endorse the fiscal year 14 community development strategy as presented to us dated December 23rd with the additions and amendments that we've spoken about tonight.
To be redated
What, right?
January 13th, 2014.
I'll second that.
All right, good. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, so endorsed.
Okay.
So you can actually do it, and
Get
as
it
long as you
before
have a
us.
copy of this vote,
All I need is to know that this vote happened and the final copy. So Mary, you can either make the edits or I can make the edits. Did you make any edits on the?
I didn't yet.
Okay.
why don't you make the edits and you'll make sure that,
That they match what you need?
yeah.
Okay. And then I'll send it to you later tonight, and you'll see it first thing in the morning.
You don't need it signed, right?
The only thing I need is
Is
to
the
know that
vote.
it got voted
Right.
affirmatively
And
tonight.
then you'll want the minutes of this meeting to show that.
Yeah, but we don't need
Those
those, those have to go in with the grant application. So
Okay.
two. So that-
I'm good for tonight. I'll make those modifications. You'll see them first thing, Mary.
Thank you,
And thank you so
It was
much.
a little sketchy there for a minute, but we got what you needed. So.
Thank you.
Thanks
Appreciate
for
it.
working on this, MJ.
Thank you.
Yeah, they got it. Yeah, your posse took off on you.
No, they did.
All right, Doug.
Yes. I'm here just for a quick. 2 years ago, the people asked me to be liaison from the select board to the senior center. And I'm here just to ask you if you still want me to be the liaison from the town of Ashfield to go with Shelburne and Buckland for the senior center. I'm very willing to do it, but I just want to know if you people want me to still do it or not.
Somebody's doing it, and I don't believe Mr. Wickland has any problem with it.
I'm anxious for it.
You're anxious, you're anxious.
So for God's sakes,
I mean-
check the motion.
You're happy to do it.
I have no problem to do it. I've worked great with, yeah, sure, with Buckland and Shelburne and Kathy. I have no problem with,
Kathy, she's not holding you back too much. It's not like dragging around a boat anchor or anything.
Nope, we got lots of lists for them, so just let us know.
I have a question. I think at the beginning of the year, when we did the reappointments, wasn't that one of, if I look in an annual report, would he be in there, or is he?
No, he's not.
Oh, it's a liaison.
It's a liaison.
Oh, different. Okay.
Yeah, we really didn't even address those. But,
And I guess a question to you, Kathy, if I may.
yes.
It's fine for a non-select board member to be appointed as a liaison?
I think there's no issue with the senior center, and that would be the only case out of the 3 towns that's the situation. Otherwise, it is a select board member that is the liaison. From
Who are the other 2, if I can ask?
Kevin Fox from Buckland, and then
Joe Judd.
Joe Judd from
Joe
Shelburne.
Judd. Okay.
So I know that Doug has expressed interest in the Council on Aging Board as well, so that if for some reason a select person wanted to be the liaison, then Doug was interested in serving on the Council on Aging. So we're happy to have him in either role. You know, what best works for the three of you to, either way, we get to have Doug, so.
Doug, what works best for you? One or the other, or both?
It doesn't make a bit of difference to me.
I mean, would you be interested in serving with Wayne on the Council of Aging?
If you don't want me on there, yes, I would like to be on the Council of Aging.
Well, I'm thinking you could do both.
Pardon me,
Yes.
I'd have to say that could be a conflict of interest because he's talking to select boards as a liaison. Not to you, he's talking to all three.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with him either way. I wouldn't mind if you did both, but I have a feeling there could be problems down the road.
Whereas if he was just liaison, there wouldn't be an issue, because it wouldn't be part of a quorum then.
I don't mind either way. Make it clear. Doug, the sooner I get him officially back, I'm happy. Now let's do something about it.
Huh? I mean, I would definitely support you being liaison. I don't see that there would be any problem. I mean, Wayne, you know that you need some manpower there. I'm kind of surprised that you would throw up a roadblock when I'm trying to get somebody drafted, but,
I don't consider it a roadblock. I consider it something that I would want clarified.
My wife is gonna say she wanted to be on the Council of Aging, but her mother just died 2 days ago, so she's not.
That's right.
sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that. So I move that we appoint Doug Field as our liaison to the senior center.
Second that?
You got something to add, Mike?
Yeah. I would like him for both, but I'd like to clarify it. So I would like to ask Doug, now that he will be officially appointed, to ask the other two select board members how they feel.
Say that again?
Well, let's
The
get...
other two select boards that you work with, Joe Judd and Mr. Fox, whether they would find a conflict if you were on both. Because they have never been. That's why I'm very
I
cautious.
don't think they would. I've worked with Kevin and Joe, worked with Joe for a good many years for Retco, so Kevin, I haven't worked, but with the senior center where Joe has been working with the fire industry and everything else with Joe. So I don't think it would be a problem. I really don't.
My read on it is that there would not be a problem as long as the two of you didn't deliberate in this space. There's nothing saying you can't come together and have a quorum present. You just deliberate. So if you came as a liaison to report to the board, you can't be, you know, back and forth with him, because then you would be deliberating and it'd be in violation of the meeting law. Otherwise, I think you're okay. I don't know how you guys feel, but I think to be in both places, you'd be fine. Just have to watch your step.
I mean, I could be on at their meetings as a board member, not a liaison to the select.
I don't think there's an issue.
If
I can't even imagine an issue, but, you know, there's all the rules. I mean, I'm not telling you that somebody couldn't make an issue.
So if we vote them separately, which we were about to do for this one, we're voting for liaison, we could do a separate vote to appoint him to the Council of Aging for Ashfield.
Because we need that. We don't get one person.
Right, and then if we need to make an
More than happy to
alteration
have
down the road, we
I
find
think
out,
that's a great idea.
then we can alter it.
So we have, the motion that was seconded is
Liaison.
is to have Doug be our liaison, the select board's
Correct.
liaison. And we got a second. Any other discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. There you go, Mr. Liaison. Is there another motion? Has anybody got any thoughts?
Yeah, provided you're willing, I'll make a motion that he, it's an appointed position.
It's an appointed position.
That we appoint Doug Field to the Ashfield Council on Aging.
Second.
And there's a second. Any other discussion on that? Seeing none. Although, Doug, are you okay with that?
Yes.
It seems like we're piling a lot on you.
It's not
Emergency
really.
manager?
We got Kathy down there, she does most of it anyhow. But no, it's not piling on, because I have stepped down away from a lot of things now. I mean, all I have now is emergency manager. We knock on wood, we haven't had one for years, so we don't know. But, I mean, we're not, I don't have that much on me now. Got stepped away from selling fire trucks, so I don't have that anymore either.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you, Deb.
Yeah, one quick.
So if we could get one more.
Just one quick
Get
thing.
one more.
No, it's 5.
Oh, it's a 5? Well, if we got one more, it would still be one more.
I have two possibles coming up, we'll talk about that.
You people asked me to go on to the Hampshire County Emergency Communications Committee. We are meeting for the first time, February 4th. I asked them why Ashfield is on the Hampshire County Emergency Communications Center. And they told me it was due to the fact that we have Highland ambulance as our primary ambulance, and Highland is under Hampshire County.
Gotcha.
So that is the reason why they asked Ashfield to get involved in this. And we're having, as I said, the first meeting February 4th, so.
Well, good.
I just gotta find the old courthouse in Northampton, that's all.
It's good to have a reason.
What's that?
It's good to have a reason that they asked it.
Yeah, I didn't know why. I mean, we're Franklin County, all our radio communications in Franklin County.
The old courthouse in Northampton?
The old courthouse in Northampton.
Corner of King and Man.
99 Main Street, wherever.
That big-
I can tell you how to get in it. You have to know how to get in it because you have to go
Oh,
through.
thanks.
You have to go through security. You have to go through security now.
Yeah, but it's right.
And all the
right-
other doors are locked.
It's right in front of the Hotel Northampton.
Oh, okay. I'll find it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
I'll post it in the-
Oh, let's get these bills paid. Let's get these bills paid. We don't have any other appointments. We don't have an appointment with Chris.
Hoping it was not for such what they were doing.
There's an item a little further down on the agenda under old business.
Yeah, we normally get these done early. Let's try to get these bills paid. We don't want to get late in the evening and say, we can't do it. You got that one set? You reviewed these already, right? $2,400 to heat the highway garage.
Does it seem too high to you?
Seems like a lot of money.
Is that just for a short period of time? Or does that deliver
I
to the
don't
last
have
of
a lot,
it?
I have a lot to go by as far as remembering what's good.
Or empty space? Because they do it with propane, right? Not oil.
Propane
I
has
think
been
it's a good deal on it compared to.
Propane has been fairly inexpensive for the BTUs, but. I hope so, that's why we're updating everything else with propane. People have to ask.
It occurs to me that we might need to make an appointment for Betty to be the police administrative assistant. We did not do that last week, we just appointed Diane, and there was discussion, because I said, well, who's gonna fill in those hours? And Betty's name was brought up, but we never voted anything for her to fill that role. We need to do something,
It was
because she's
part of
doing
that.
a new task.
It was part of that motion to have the chief,
To have a position, but we didn't vote a person.
it was part of, it was part of, the chief has that, yeah, Ashfield.
True, but
Correct.
usually even when he would hire officers and stuff, he would normally bring somebody forward for us to have.
Yeah, it's fine, I mean.
I'm just saying, if we want to have all the i's dotted and t's crossed, maybe.
Oh, playing that game, huh?
Try not to interrupt. That's all right. It was the
That'll be the next thing.
It's been about 7,000 a year for heating the highway garage this last few years.
Heard our question. I put it down.
Well, so then the roads was almost $25,000 in this 2-week period.
Oh, by itself.
Because you got labor down there too. retiree health insurance benefits, $3.22. We need more of those. Well,
Is this that piece from your chair last week?
so since that's not on your mind, you want to make a motion about that? About Betty?
Did it say? Well, either that or was Diane going to bring it forward as the chief used to when he had a police officer, so I don't want to upend something she might have done.
Well,
Just as the chief has done in the past.
well, I would think that would be appropriate. I mean,
So I wouldn't want to do it and then she was planning to come forward.
I would rather, if it has to be done at all, to be brought forward, because after a month or so, or 3 weeks, to see if they came to a good agreement on what needs to be done, and that it's a workable situation.
So I'm fine waiting for her. I mean, I wasn't trying to not wait for her to do that.
My only view on that whole thing is, not that I'm avoiding it, but I just feel that we took care of it when I made the motion last week, that would be a position for someone, so.
I agree.
Just slightly different than the two of you. Personally, I think that both Tom and police, well, let's deal with police chief. We have a strong department, and everything I've ever read says that they have the ability to bring people on and get rid of people. And I think it's nice as a courtesy if they bring that before the board. So that's what I would like to see.
Yeah, that's fine.
And Tommy does the same thing, right? I mean, he brings it, he doesn't need to, but he does, and it's a nice thing to do. So I'd rather see it approach us from that direction. If someone could gently nudge him, Mr.
Yeah, I
Liaison.
think Tom does need to do
Okay.
it, because it's that type of different situation. But
Okay.
I felt we addressed it last week, but that's fine. I mean, I do think, I didn't contact her today, but
Okay.
sometimes I think no news is good news.
Yeah.
But I'll make sure that I speak to her before the first week, before the end of this week, because I'm going to be out of town. I'll be out.
Next week?
We don't have a meeting on the
Next
20th.
week. I'll be back for the next meeting.
Okay.
And basically Ron said it different, but that's exactly what I was saying, is to wait for her to bring it, but I know this.
Well, she might not have thought of it.
Right.
Oh, no, we had her thinking of enough things without thinking about those details. So next, determine interest in the direct loan technical assistance participation.
Direct local.
Direct local, what did I say, loan? No, I was thinking about
Close
money.
enough.
Just thinking about money. Oh,
Now, I printed out the items that Ron sent that include the Sweetheart Tea House, speaking of senior center.
And I don't have any real sense of ownership to the prioritization of all those other things, but I thought it was pretty neat, if I can speak to the subject.
absolutely, absolutely.
That I happen to have been joining Wayne on the past couple board of director meetings over at the senior center, and just because I know so little about what they do, and I'm more and more amazed every time I go there as to what they do. And there's a problem in space, big problem. They have to, first come, first serves. They have to turn away people on meals and certain events and so on and so forth. And John Payne, select board member from Shelburne, came forward, and they've been looking at space for police and town hall related things and stuff, and senior center too. And he had this idea about the Sweetheart Tea House, and there's so many issues associated with it, but what they were wondering is if they could get some DLTA funds kind of pointed in that direction for a feasibility study to see if it was even a possibility, you know, maybe that there wasn't enough parking or something like that. And what they do on this DLTA thing is that there's two different sides to the application. One is based on planning projects and the other is on regional projects. And according to John Payne, if the three members of the senior center kind of held hands and came up with something like this, that there could be some real possibilities for funding that feasibility study. At the last senior center meeting that I went to with Wayne, they actually took a vote on it formally and decided to pursue it or to approve it. And Kathy Button is here in the audience if you have any questions relative to that. And of course, Wayne is the vice chair of the board. Is that what your position is? What's that?
Last I knew.
Last I knew. So we have the powerhouse today here if there's any discussion of that subject. And I just put these numbers down, just to put them down. You know, they're tough choices, but put the senior center on the top of the list. And John's
Letter covering the vote as entered as adopted.
Okay. How many, do you have more of those or no?
I've got 3 copies there.
Okay, well, I'll pass mine on to Mayor then, because I have a copy of it.
Okay.
For the file. I wasn't there in an official capacity, just as
Kathy, you have something to offer us here?
Sure. You know,
I don't want to keep you all night.
well, is this all night? You guys keep going, you go late, don't you?
Yeah,
You know,
it's
I've
all
been
right.
here for a couple of hours. Thank you for asking me to speak. This kind of came up, as you know, the application here to prioritize projects, you know, was due when it kind of comes out and you need to turn it around fast. So for Shelburne, the factors came together kind of, you know, for John, having worked on these different aspects and the needs in Shelburne in particular, and knowing the senior center's needs for space and our desire to be in our own space, and also probably in a, you know, a more aesthetic facility too. So the idea of the Sweetheart had come up years ago, and you know, it's a big project, obviously. It's pretty structurally sound now, but it's an empty shell. But what it's filled with is memories for people and seniors, and that's just something that people hold dear in the area of all the special occasions that maybe they attended or, you know, were part of at the Sweetheart. So it's really got a lot of meaning and a lot of history for the area, and so we just felt the association there was really strong. We've taken a couple tours of it, imagined the space, have floor plans, you know, but right off the bat I said, I'm certainly interested in the project, but it would need to be, I wouldn't even continue to pursue it if it wasn't going to be a multi-use center where there's some way to bring in revenues to help cover the costs. That to, you know, envision a huge building as all senior center would be wonderful, but I see it as part of the center, like an anchor of the center, and then the rest of it is really used as a hub for West County for in different ways, and ways that bring in revenue to help support the whole project. And you know, I could even envision the whole big, we were all there in the dining hall, and you know, the chandeliers and the beautiful view out by the falls. I mean, yes, that could be the multi-use room for the senior center, but it'd be a wonderful rental facility for functions. And if you're going to build a kitchen, it would be there to use. So it would really give West County another center for functions too. So there was a lot of purpose there, not just for the senior center, but certainly I would love to be in that space, and I think it would be a tribute to the seniors that they deserve such a beautiful place that we can renovate and use for everybody. And we've been working on putting together memberships for other towns to join the consortium, either in a partial or full membership way. In the rate at which we're growing and the senior population is growing in the area, we are going to need more space. So hopefully, you know, by joining forces, that would keep the cost reasonable for communities. But
Well,
certainly,
that made a huge impact last year during budget time, or maybe it was slightly before, when we heard that how many were going to be retiring here in the next few years. I mean, it seems like I hear it at least once a month.
I'm not gonna say it again.
Right? Well, then you'll say it next time.
It's going from
But
51 to 800. But I'm not gonna
it's
say
going from
that.
what, 50?
I don't know, 425
Right,
to possibly
I actually
800
know
for 5
numbers,
years, but I'm not gonna say that.
In 2012, 40% of the population was over the age of 55. Projected by 2017, it'll be 60%. Just 2017, it'll be 60% over the age of 55. So, and it's just the front end of the big slug of baby boomers coming.
and so that's, I mean, Ashfield in particular, numbers-wise, is a higher percentage than even the other two communities of the consortium right now. But that wouldn't slow us from our efforts to become more involved, you know, in this community and in the other communities if they chose to join the consortium. That as much as we would have a beautiful center, our efforts to go out into the communities and be there and offer, you know, things in the communities would continue. So that's why I say we don't need the whole space, because we want to make sure that we're out in the communities as well. But this, you know, to fund a feasibility study, because some studies have been done by the Business Association and a group, but they looked at it purely on an economic, you know, retail basis, you know, taking out straight loans and paying the debt, and they realized that that wasn't going to work, that there needs to be another element where we could recruit funding from grants and donations and things for the purchase and renovation of the facility. And municipalities have that access to those funds, as well as 501Cs, which, you know, we can access. So, you know, I would request that, you know, it be considered. It is a feasibility study, so we're going to see if it makes sense or not, and go from there. So, we're pretty excited at the potential.
The other two towns are meeting tonight also? I know that Shelburne is, I think.
Shelburne met tonight, same time, so, and then Buckland tomorrow night. And so the deadline for those grants was yesterday, right? I think. But today. So let me see if he's been in touch with
Yeah, I don't know if it was Linda.
Is this John
Linda
Payne?
Dunleavy, right? So John Payne's working with Linda Dunleavy, and she said fine. She understood the timeline here for people to vote. So that is why, you know, tonight's important, I guess, here if you're considering this and any other projects to
So this
get on that
grant,
list.
the idea on this, is this a cost share or is this a grant?
No, straight up.
Yeah, there's no match, I believe, so.
Zero match.
Paula?
I think it sounds like a great idea. If we don't investigate it and do a study of it, we won't know. And the statistics Ron just gave, which is 60% by 2017, good Lord, we're already in 14.
Yeah.
And if the space is adequate, it's hard to get people to go if things are crowded, I think. So when there's enough space and you feel like you're not crowded in, it might even get more participation than one would anticipate, just by a different space, a location.
I really think this is great. I am just a bit skeptical sometimes. I mean, I always think of that dog that used to change the chase the school bus. You know, I mean, if it ever caught it, what the hell would he do with it, you know, sort of thing. And once we start down this road, I mean, if we head down through there as one of the communities in just 3 community deal, it would be a big nut to crack, but at the same time, if people are willing to vote for it because there's enough people that are in a position to take advantage of it.
And like I
know-
said, I would
I
want.
know even years ago, when my grandfather was alive, you know, that he didn't think the senior center was such a great thing, but he became very fond of it, and it was a great thing that he was able to do. So I think we're gonna go through these ups and downs with any organization, and for certainly to be able to explore it. But certainly I would hope as we explore it, there's a lot of talk about it not being a single-use type facility. I mean, I can see, hey, I can see that's a great place for the bus to stop, you know, and tourist activities and that sort of thing. So, you know, that's a great intersection. So, you want to vote that we're going to be behind this?
It would be appreciated.
Before we get to that vote, I spoke with John, and John's agreeable. He authored this letter, okay? And if I put together a vote, I think it'd be appropriate to have it on letterhead, maybe not necessarily signed, but on Ashfield, town of Ashfield letterhead, the John Payne letter.
Yes, I believe a support letter like that could go with.
With the
because-
actual application.
Exactly, because
Which
each
prioritizes.
town needs to put it in as a priority, and
Right.
then the letter would go with it, right, as well, saying that the Ashfield board voted to support. And
So-
working with the other 2 towns.
So you're looking at the request letter as opposed to this one from the town of Shelburne?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all right, just want to make sure, either one, so that we get behind what they're doing as part of the center.
Now, if you want, I'll separate this in a motion, just feeling you guys out a little bit, to support this under the regional programs, and then we can talk about the prioritization separately.
Yeah, that's just right.
Okay. All right, so I will make a motion that we prioritize the DLTA application under regional projects, with the number 1 priority being the senior center, Sweetheart Tea House feasibility study, see attached supplemental information, and that supplemental information would be the Sweetheart Tea House feasibility study request on letterhead. I thought it was pretty simple, but Lynn's looking at me like, can you start over?
I'll just write the time.
Yeah, so you can,
Could we add to be signed by the chair as soon as the letter's ready?
I was doing well, then you lost me.
Yeah, I'd be fine.
Because we don't have it on letter.
I was gonna send this in tonight, because it was due tonight.
Buckland still has to meet tomorrow night, so I think you could have one more day.
Signature instead.
sure.
Okay.
These don't, I mean, I don't see any place on the actual form where it gets signed. So that's why it didn't occur to me, all that on the form. But I don't have an issue if Tom wants to swing by on his way to work tomorrow or something like that.
No, that'll be fair. That'll be
So I'll
fine.
accept that as a friendly motion. But the important thing is on the regional, the flip side of the application, which is the regional projects, this be listed as number 1. And draw reference to the letter that is on Ashfield letterhead.
And could we also do what they did on this other letter and CC the towns of Buckland and
I
Shelburne?
think that'd be a great idea. So add that to the motion.
We'll get there.
We all set?
Okay.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Second, all right. So, before we do that, why don't we confirm our placing with the rest of these under the regional projects?
I just thought we might
put one.
move some around and this and that. That way, if we had this as one, we could allow these people to leave, and we could arm wrestle over the rest, or just discuss them, or whatever.
Okay. That's
It's
fine.
already a very long motion.
But,
Yeah.
but,
Yeah, don't have any more than that.
so what you're saying is that we agree at least that this would be our first
Priority.
priority.
And we're doing this letter.
Letter to support that.
And in the application, you need to say, see attached, letter of merit. Yeah.
And do we need to send, in terms of the CC, if I add to it,
Talk
to the
Michelle
senior
and
center
senior
and the
center.
senior center, which, so they get a
Yep.
copy.
That'd be
So
good.
that was just 3 instead of 2.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
Good. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you much.
Feel free to stick around if you want to hear the other prioritization.
Well, why don't we do it while we're talking about it?
Sure.
I mean, I don't think it's gonna, I'm going through the regional projects,
Yep.
so, and I know this is your draft. This is,
No one.
That's fine, I mean-
It's my draft. Just to get it on the table.
I mean, 2 is the select board, and 3 is the finance committee essentials. Which I think those are great projects.
Yep.
All right, I'm on the wrong page.
That's the flip, it's the
The
regional
second
one.
under the regional.
Thank you.
And then 4, regional fire.
You have a copy of this, Mary?
I do.
Okay. I put the animal control on the bottom because
Yeah, we're covered.
that's usually expressed as the least desirable one.
Well, it sounded like it was gonna cost us more.
Yeah,
Due to the transportation,
yeah,
if nothing else.
I guess I have
go for it.
an issue with Conservation Commission agent being 5. Um,
Switch it up.
May I just make one point? The way I read this is that you can rank, prioritize ones you're interested in, but if you're not, you don't
Oh, really?
have to give it a number, I think.
So the only number of the things you're interested in.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, the MGM aggregation, I think we're a ways away from that.
Yeah.
I guess
Do you want
I
to?
would switch them around.
Go for
I mean, that Conservation Commission agent, I think, I haven't heard any complaints otherwise that our Conservation Commission doesn't seem to be,
So take it off.
that we're getting adequate administration of the laws and so forth. As long as we're able to find people to do it. You know, that always becomes a little bit of an issue.
And maybe I should just remind us that I did send this out, I should have brought the letter, but quite a while ago, to all towns, boards, committees, departments. And some didn't reply at all. Those who replied did say no interest. So just in terms of looking at this and feedback from towns, departments and boards and committees.
So just take.
See,
it off.
I would take, well, I was gonna take that, I was gonna make the broadband adoption number 5, I would think.
I'm okay with that.
And regional fire, you're leaving it 4 at the moment.
Yeah, oh, I think that's, I would think that's fine. And I guess it's funny that there's a line here for regional library collaborations, and we didn't get anything back from the library trustees. Which, you know, with their new system and so forth, I wonder how much more collaboration they can put up with. You know, you can have a book in 2 days that's in a library in South Boston, delivered if you need it, so.
The one
So
that's,
I guess probably that broadband adoption, I would think could be a higher priority, and maybe the Conservation Commission would be 8.
the one that's number 10, Human Resources Product. That has a lot to it in terms of looking at the capabilities in Franklin County, and I wonder if that should be number 6.
Sure. Are you okay with 5 being broadband powered?
Oh, sure.
Okay, so let's do that, cross that up. 6,
Well, only because the more and sort of in conjunction, but not necessarily where they're saying regional service center, because it seems there's always comments that the state and the feds could putting more and more work on the small towns, and I wonder if the one that's currently marked 10 and 7
Should be
are
swapped.
related a little, so I want the audit to be 6, and then if there's something you can share, maybe you share, but that was specific about sharing with Greenfield, and I wasn't thinking that it had to be that specific.
Right.
So I was thinking 10 might become number 6.
That's fine. I think that makes good sense.
do you want to completely scratch off or not put anything in the MGM and the Concom, or in the regional library collaborations? Don't even rank them?
And the animal control one, I
Yeah.
like, I think, too.
So let's leave those blank. If
Sure, that's fine.
MGM, Animal, Concom, and Regional Library. And we're down to 6.
And I think we've got those all covered, right?
And are we interested in the FERC relicensing of something on the Connecticut River?
I would think that
doesn't even-
seems something to support the local dams as opposed to taking them out. I mean, they're hydropower, right? They're hydroelectric, so we're getting power by moving water, and it's moving for us, and it's
I guess that would
cheap
mean,
electricity.
that would mean more to me if they were talking about electricity on the Deerfield and then on the Connecticut.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I think this is the Northfield
Pump station
and,
and Turner's Falls.
yeah,
Okay.
Those are the only two that I know of in Franklin County, right?
yeah.
There's one at Junior's?
Sure. And where they built the bridge. When they put the bridge in, when they rebuilt the bridge.
Okay. I knew Northfield was there, but got away at Turner's.
Turner's Falls, Guild Bridge.
It's like, that's what the power is.
Oh, the power, yeah.
It goes through the canal.
Right, it's downstream.
Oh,
That's where,
It's called the Cabot Station.
Oh,
that's where
okay.
it
But
diverts.
it does come, it gets diverted.
You're right, and I was thinking of the Deerfield River here, just around the corner, but this is strictly Connecticut, so.
So you want to take it off?
Yeah, I don't think it has anything.
Okay.
I think for us to pass judgment on, that's a little foolish.
So right now, we have number 7 as a regional service center. Is that, do we want to leave that or move something else into 7?
It's hard not to support in some way the task force that says reduce heroin, and prescription painkiller abuse. I mean,
Okay.
it seems somewhere before we finish it, would be nice to have a number on that somewhere.
Okay, so
I'm not saying the number, just that I don't think it should go blank.
so let's leave it as 7 and turn the regional opioid and opioid, I don't even know that word, task force into 8, and then we're done.
So may I read it back going down the list?
Yeah?
Starting at the top, I have 2, 7, 5, 8, 6, 3, blank, blank, 4, blank, 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 1.
Yep, that's what I have. Perfect.
You want to do page 1 while we're at
Might as well.
it? Planning projects.
Before we leave,
Yes.
the regional library, even though they didn't respond to that, there's no reason we wouldn't want to explore that collaboration, or they're happy the way they are, so
I would think it would need to come from them.
if they wanted us to do something. Okay. Let me get back one more time.
It's their library. What do they call the computer system?
Mars.
Mars.
Pretty slick, huh? I love it.
Yeah, you didn't even have to go to the library. All right. So 1, downtown or village center master plan.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead.
So I look at something like downtown village center master plan. I know the town has done these things on and off, and where it's saying projects your town is interested in. I'm assuming, and I may be incorrect, that then we may be committed to working on something if they get these funds. So I just want to balance it with what our own priorities are for time, and I think that's it.
Right, to take a look at what we can handle and what really are. Don't put a grade on them just for the sake of putting a grade on.
In part because we may then have committed to doing a certain amount of work that may or may not be something that's timely for us. I think less so on the regional ones, I'm assuming there.
See, I think the ones that you've got 8 and mark 8 and 7 can be blank. I think that 1, I mean, correct me, should 1 be where 5 is, where it's talking about zoning bylaws?
Maybe.
I mean, we brought up with MJ, right, about bylaws for senior housing and that sort of thing. I mean,
Somehow
is
those,
that really where we're going when we have 1 talking about studying a master plan for the downtown and the village? It seems like the village here in the plains has been studied, my God. We study it much more, nobody's gonna own anything, it'll be.
the current 1, 5, and 2 seem to all be related. And I'm wondering, given what you're saying about the center, is it really the master plan that's about housing and that's the issue as opposed to just the center of the village? Because not all housing would need to be in the center of the village.
No, I think as far as, you know,
So-
maybe that master plan, I can kind of see that being 2, because at some point, someone has to make some tough decisions about parking. Somebody's got to figure out what needs to be done, and is that part of zoning bylaws, or is that part of the master plan?
I think it's part of the downtown village and center master plan. But it's also tied in with the open space, the OSRP that Alan was working on. And we need to finish that because it gets in the way of getting grants and stuff. It's not completed, and that does say something about updating the existing plan, and maybe we could get some help doing that.
I struggle with economic development in terms of making a master plan for the town of Ashfield.
Mhm.
That's, I think, actually, you said it last week, maybe, or week before, that Ashfield went from this agricultural community to almost a bedroom town, and now based on statistics, it's going to be a retirement town. And people, if there's a preponderance of retired people, they aren't necessarily looking to start businesses. That's not to say some aren't, but that's the other side. They've already gone through that. They're retiring. So that's a tough thing to do, I think. Not that you can't look at it,
I'm open to any suggestion on this. I really am.
So actually, what you're saying, Paula, is probably what Ron has marked here is in 1 and 2 isn't too far off from what you'd be thinking.
some combination of that and tied in with the zoning bylaws and number 4, they're all gonna come together.
Mhm.
Well, why don't we leave 1 and 2 where it is? Well, you're saying,
I might change.
once you switch 3 and 5?
Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
sure.
So zoning is 3, and open space is 5.
And we leave green communities at 6?
Yeah.
Because it said there's not too much we can do with that.
And I think you can leave number 7, you can drop 7 and 8 right off.
I do too.
So let me tell you a little story about medical marijuana since it's on the list. Last week, I was in Augusta, Maine, and had a series of meetings with the Pesticide Bureau. And they gave us an update on things that were going through the legislature in Maine, which was always interesting. Because you talk about diversity.
Right.
South Maine, south of Augusta and north of Augusta are
Totally
totally different. So anyway, they had medical marijuana, medical marijuana production in Maine. And so when they passed that law, that all the medical marijuana grown and distributed in the state of Maine had to be 100% organic. You couldn't use any type of crop protection material on it at all. It had to be grown in that situation. Well, now the producers have come back and said, now we've got an issue. Because I had thought that they grew it in a greenhouse type of structure, but it's not. It's a room not a whole lot different than this. They control the atmosphere, they have the grow lights and the whole business. So you have all these plants in a very tight situation, controlled humidity and that sort of thing. And you get disease. And you get insect problems. And so now they want to say, well, we want to modify the law that we can apply pesticides.
Mhm.
But the problem is that they can't modify the law to say that because it's against the pesticide business, the EPA is in charge of pesticide laws.
Oh, right.
And it is against federal law to be propagating marijuana. So, what a
Catch-22.
what a terrible web we weave,
Oh,
right?
for sure.
I mean, so I'm sure it's gonna sort itself out, but Maine won't be the only state to go through that. I just thought that would be an interesting little, because I was kind of chuckling
That's crazy.
in the front row of the room going,
But aren't they gonna have a problem treating something that they want to be organic?
well, they're saying they can't grow it organic. They can't grow it.
They don't have
They
any
don't have,
effective
they just
pesticides.
can't, they just effectively can't do it.
So is it back to the free
So-
agents in their cornfields or
Well,
not?
they'll do some, but anyway, it was just an interesting little sidebar since it was on the list.
Now, On this document that we're completing, I think Ron, if I'm not mistaken, had you filled it out or Mary filled it out? I know it's got Mary's name there. Did we put
I just
Tom's
filled it
name?
out. I didn't see any place for us to sign off, so I said, that sounds like an administrative thing to do. So that's why I put Mary's name there. I didn't even ask her, I don't.
Or should it come and have Tom's name, since it, from the
I'm fine with whatever, I just did that.
I do I do send back a lot of things.
That's, so,
I may have lost the thread on how we ranked going down. I've got some.
why don't you start at the top like you did before?
All right, 4,
Yeah,
1,
yeah,
3,
yeah,
5,
yeah,
6,
yeah,
nothing,
yeah,
2,
yeah.
nothing.
Yeah, that's it. So is there a motion that we'll accept those 2 pages so we can get this sent in?
So move, I will make the motion that we accept the 2014 Local Technical Assistance Request Form as amended. And this is a separate motion than the earlier one, so this one just identifies the priorities of everything else other than the senior center. And I'm fine with Tom's name, or did we leave it at Mary's? Mary's name, and for her to submit that to FERC.
Second.
Oh, okay.
Any-
That's all right.
Any other discussion?
No,
No.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Good deal. All right.
Ron, thanks for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was good.
Let's skip around just a little bit. We have a draft of open meeting law complaint response. Do we have it on, we're gonna have it on letterhead, or you have it on?
I have it here you each have the draft.
Do you wanna, this just came in today?
It did this afternoon.
Take a few minutes to read that over. Any comments, questions? I have no problem with that.
Who's signing this?
There are signature places for all 3 board members.
I had come in early tonight to look through business before, and I just commented to Mary that it was my impression that where we had town council do this, that it would go on her letterhead and we would co-sign under it. But Mary informs me that because it came so last minute that if there were any changes to it, it would have been difficult to pull it off. So I suggest in the future that we do it both ways. We get done and submitted, presuming that we're going to second or, sign beneath it, and also get a Word copy that if we have to change it, we put it on our own letterhead. But it just kind of states her position and we're agreeing on it, basically, if that's what we do. I'll make a motion just to get it on the table so we can discuss it, that we endorse letter prepared by Town Council to Suzanne Corbett, dated January 13th, 2014, and copies to Amy Nabel, Assistant Attorney General.
I'll second that. Paulette, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting in that this has been, as Ron said, drafted for us by town council. That makes it difficult. Because if it was under her name, how do I want to say this? She obviously can offer whatever legal opinion she so chooses. And in her name, they can debate whether it's right or wrong. This is interesting in that it has summarized this, and there was quite a bit of information, in very few paragraphs, if we're to agree to. And without looking through everything we had from before and sitting and going line by line, I do believe there are some things that I would disagree with, but it's an odd position to be in. You have to disagree with what she wrote for us.
Well, that was the motion we made the decision we made was to forward to the town council. And town council, Mary, I'm assuming that we had to forward her all the information on all those
We
minutes.
worked all the way through it, through the points provided, the minutes in question, the document lists, the pieces of the meetings and so forth, so,
And the recordings.
and the recordings.
So, as far as it not being as long in its number of pages as the request, I mean, I've said right along, there's something to be said for brevity. So, to boil it all down and answer the pertinent questions on one page, I think is wonderful. I applaud it. So, and I'm certainly in agreement with that. I'm very happy that we sent it to town council to review all the information where some of the rest of us might be too close to it to author a letter and boil it down.
Well, there are some points I disagree with, that I don't believe this is factual. I specifically, my question originally was about a mailing to the public records that had to be reimbursed, Mary, return receipt, that kind of thing. And my question was, what did we send? We asked to have a copy, and I remember what Mary brought back was a copy of a letter to the Attorney General, not a copy of the letter that went with the mailing that said to public records. So I never really did see that. So I think there are some things in here that, as she states, I would disagree that we did do. Without listening.
I hate to interrupt you, but I just want to clarify that we're not responding to your questions. We're responding to Suzanne's questions. Isn't that correct? We're not responding to your questions.
But I believe that if one were to listen to the audios, and I'm asking for A, and what comes back is B, somebody else listening might say they didn't do what they were supposed to do, is where I was headed. The other thing down in the bottom is I would have to listen again myself. I really do not recall, I recall you sort of joking a bit that we would definitely hear from somebody when we refuse to complete a public record request.
Yeah, I think it's pretty plain when you go back and review that.
But anyway.
I don't believe Donna would put herself in a bind where she would make it up.
I'm not saying, I believe it is subject to interpretation, but anyway. So you asked me what I thought.
Yes,
So
no,
I think-
that's great. I just want to clarify
So,
what questions we were answering, and I believe this covers, after sorting through it, the request that Suzanne Corbett sent in. So, is there any other discussion?
Just a comment, when I looked at this, I looked at her original accusation of an open meeting law violation. And I was very confused by the way she authored it. It was hard for me to really understand what she was asking for. And I'm just thankful, in fact, that someone else could respond. So this clearly is a response by town council, who's supposed to represent us. And it's off my table, off my plate. So I'm satisfied with it. And I trust in the fact that she got the facts from Mary and responded appropriately.
and I agree with you. I wish it were in her name.
Yeah.
Not that we're supposed to sign yet. Because
Yeah,
we
sign
didn't spend
under it.
any time reviewing it.
Yeah.
None whatsoever, so it's hard to say agree or disagree. We just kind of handed it off, so in that case, I wish this had her name on it, representing us, not us signing that we agree with what she wrote.
I would say for
I
the
don't know.
record also, if you were going back and looking at this, somehow we need to say that if the motion passes and it gets signed, is that this was something created by town council. I know it's not, you wouldn't always know that. 5 years from now, you go back and look at a letter like this, you have to go through the email correspondence and so on and so forth to really understand that. There's not much we can do to it now, but if the minutes properly reflect that this was her pen, basically.
Yeah,
as
as drafted by.
Yeah,
And wasn't that your motion?
yeah, it was.
Why aren't we having her do it in her name?
I think it's
It's
due.
late already. It was
I
due
think
today.
it's due tonight, and we got it today. I think
Yeah,
that's.
and so we're late already. There's no way this is going to be in
No,
Suzanne's hand on time.
I'm going to email it tonight after the meeting, and then I'll say hard copy to follow. I let them know that I do that, and town council was away for a period of time, having a family, this was as soon as we could get this in.
I would prefer this be in her name.
I don't have any, I don't have any,
Disagree
I have
with what she wrote, and yet we're putting our name on it.
Yeah, I have no problem because regardless of the research, I think we've lived it, all right? We've approved the minutes, we went through the minutes, we've approved them, we go through the minutes on a very regular basis and at an appropriate timing. We post the minutes and it addresses all those things. I mean, we have stayed on top of stinking minutes like, Lynn has done great if we miss one to get on us. And we've approved them, we've been very timely. Hey, somebody could have written this reply a little different since we lived it, but I think it's great that it was probably somebody a little bit removed to review what we've already agreed on as a board is what we did. And it does talk about the recording, a recording of what was in the discussion when we made the motion. So I don't have any problem. If you want to amend the motion, Ron, that I sign it, or?
Yeah, I would make a friendly motion and I don't mind signing it beside you if Paulette doesn't want it. So either way, it can be what it is. I don't need to amend it.
Okay.
You have a letter prepared?
I do.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed. All right, get that off the list.
Let's sign off on it so we don't
You
forget.
got it there, Mary?
Yep, sorry. If we need one, 2 copies, probably just one.
No, we might as well sign two since they're here.
Doesn't one have to go?
Well, I've separate letters for, so that, those are the 2 copies of the letter to Nagel and Attorney Nagel, and then 2 copies of the letter to This is the record.
So, Paulette, you just voted not to sign it, and yet you signed it?
No.
And made a note that you're not in agreement.
Right, I want it on record.
Well, I got a pretty good idea that the minutes will reflect that, right? Anything else? Is that all?
No, that's it for that.
Well, you know, putting something there, it looks like I didn't participate at all, and I didn't want to.
Okay. Oh. Interim police chief, you have that? There's some paperwork? A disclosure.
There is a disclosure form, Diane Wilder has.
The town clerk brought this to our attention, is that correct?
Yep. Note from town clerk says, Diane's disclosure form, the select board needs to review it.
So this is a disclosure by a non-elected municipal employee of financial interest and determination by a county authority. So it's bringing it to us to review.
And there is a signature place on the second page. I believe it's just for the chair, but
So it's, go ahead.
Is there something special about doing this for the interim police chief? Then,
I think it would be to do for anybody. I think as we read through it, we'll have.
okay.
So Diane, acting police chief, Ashfield Police Department, it's got the address, the phone number, her email address, particular matter, please describe the particular matter, okay? I am acting police chief and my husband is one of the officers. Please describe the task you are required to perform with respect to the particular matter, scheduling, details, signing off on payroll. So she has a financial interest. It says I have a financial interest in the matter. She checked that, and an immediate family member has a financial interest in the matter. Please explain the financial interest and include a dollar amount if you know it. I am in charge of his payroll and detail and scheduled work time. Diane Wilder, the date is 1/9/14.
So if he was not on our police force, she wouldn't need this.
She wouldn't.
That's what this is about.
It's just a
Correct.
public
I was trying to find a
disclosure.
context.
Okay,
Thank
and we discussed this
Right.
a couple of times that Charlie was here, and so
He's their go-to guy.
So I'll make a motion that we, what would it be? To make a determination that, what is the determination? Is it appointing official,
I think it's just
particular
receipt.
matter, it says that the determination, as appointing official, I have reviewed the particular matter and the financial interest identified above by municipal, I have determined that the financial interest is not so substantial as to be deemed likely to affect the integrity of the services which the municipality may expect from the employee. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Unanimous. Today is the 13th. Okay, and I wrote 14 the first time without having to scratch out 13. That's fine. Read any further. Pass that back, that's off your list. All right, so Chris has been waiting here. It is.
And this is for the building committee.
Sorry to keep you waiting so long, but
He's here for moral support.
we're getting it done. So we sent you back to the building committee,
Yes.
and the building committee met earlier this evening.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. So this was handed on their way out. So let me read it. The Town Hall Building Committee supports this proposed use of the hall, the steeple, for distribution of wireless internet services, including antennas. From a structural, mechanical, electrical, and maintenance standpoint, the committee feels the value provided to the town outweighs the aesthetic concerns. There needs to be a balance between the aesthetics and the needs of the community. 4 members present, 1 member recused themselves. So that's their recommendation.
Could we note on there who the 4 members? I mean, doesn't it seem appropriate? I know they have their own minutes.
Right. Yeah, we could ask them to update that. Who handed this to? Was it
I
Mary?
saw
It
Mary,
was Mary Quigley,
Doug,
Doug Cranston,
Stuart Harris.
Stuart Harris, and
Scott.
Don Scott.
Scott.
Donna Scott was here, you're right.
Yeah.
Those are the 4 that were voting.
Because I saw Nancy Garvin also, didn't I?
Yeah, she
Right, a
approved.
couple of members recused.
She recused
themselves.
herself. I bet.
She's my cousin.
Yes, that was the reason. So, yeah, we could get it updated.
Or just get it in our minutes, who were the 4, and I think we just did that, right, Mary?
Yes, we did.
That needs to be.
Okay.
Document list.
Sure.
So now where are we? Coming up with a proposal?
Close. I still have to meet with the historical commission. We were trying to get a meeting before this time, but it wasn't possible. So next Thursday, I'm meeting with the historical commission,
Great.
and then they should provide something to you, as you previously requested.
Good. Good. So we're speeding along. So if we get that, it sounds like by February 1st or shortly thereafter.
It's like town trees.
Right? Right. We should, all the pins should be lined up.
I have a couple questions on the process. The Historical Commission, I understand who they are. What about a courtesy call to the Historical Society? Does that make any sense at all? Just to
I don't
do
know.
some marketing?
I can do that.
I'm just asking the question.
I don't know.
There's a pretty direct line there.
Let's see, does he know the chair?
it seems to me that having their input
I know the
could
majority
only-
of the board, I think.
Having their input, Chris, could only strengthen, having their positive input could only strengthen what you do there. And then my second question is, what kind of public processes are going to be? Everyone's going to want to know, what's it going to look like? You know, absolutely everyone, because I mean, this is the centerpiece of our town here. And I agree with the statement for the most part, but to what extent do they mean is acceptable? You know what I'm saying? The alterations up there. If it's something that you can see from, you know, 1,000 feet away, I might feel differently than something I have to squint for. You know what I'm saying? It seems like an important thing. A lot of sweat equity has gone into this building from a lot of people around town.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe just some type of you know, somebody could come up with some kind of sketch as what you're thinking it might look like.
If you'd like to look, I can show you.
Well, you can put it together in a packet.
Let's hear it.
As far as the historical society, you know, I mean, I'm more concerned about the town board
Yeah,
and the historical commission.
I'm willing to do any sort of public communication associated with it.
Good.
I hesitate to do so without direction because telling the town what one's going to do without giving them an opportunity for input seems
Short-sighted.
So I don't know what the most appropriate way for input would be. But
We're doing all the right things. I mean, going to these boards and commissions and getting that kind of input to begin with. I think when you get a recommendation from the historical commission, I think the next steps will be pretty obvious, is trying to pull something together. And come up with
Public-wise.
To come up with a proposal.
Oh, okay.
Do you have a drawing there with you
would
at
you
this
like
time?
to see it?
I would.
Sure.
If we could take a
If
couple
you-
minutes.
It's not a drawing, right? I'm not very good at interviews. That's without the antennas, and that's with the antennas. And I've got three of them, they're different angles.
So in this picture, I see a very little line along the back here. Is that the antenna you're referring to, or is that a different
The
antenna?
police antenna, that's currently up there.
Okay.
There's a piece there, that's 4.5 foot tall sector antenna. There's
Oh, yeah.
one there, and maybe a third one on the backside.
Oh, okay, I see.
This
So
is-
the fatter part of the column, so to
This
speak.
is a, reasonably realistic view. This is zoomed in so you can see, they're not positioned quite perfectly, but they're reasonably to scale. One here, one in the back. And then one here, and one in the back.
Nice.
And this is what I
That's
consider worst case scenario, with the largest possible antennas and in the most prominent locations.
So they don't have that traditional antenna shape of a skinny little thing that's going up and up and up
They
and
do
up.
not.
So that's, yeah, that's what I was looking for.
Well, you'd have to be standing at just the right angle to even hardly notice.
Yeah, looks great.
This doesn't show shadowing off of the antennas, so they might be more obvious.
Depending on where the sun is.
So do they somehow just mount to, because it looks like
That's why I'm not shaking. it.
Okay, thank you for
these have
that.
a flat surface to them, right? The columns, they've got like six sides?
Uh,
Or is that an illusion?
No, they do.
So it just anchors to it like a flat side?
They would be clamped on with a large band so that there would be no
You would be driving
damage, there would be
nails.
no
Oh, okay,
physical change to the structure.
okay.
Chris, did you talk to Stuart
That's
About-
nice. They take them off. There's nothing.
about those columns at all? Did he recognize the fact that they're gonna be, he was up there with me and he said 3 of them are gonna have to get yanked out at one time.
Yeah, so he and I spoke about the removal of the steeple and about, I can step back.
Okay.
Thank you.
That was
Chris,
great.
do you have extra pictures?
It's really.
Well, they just have to be part of the document now, you guys looked at them.
I wonder, they might color copy nicely though,
Yes.
on your copy machine,
Maybe we could
color copy machine.
do
Give
that.
us a couple of them.
Can I get the electronic, can I send the
Yeah,
electronic one?
That'd
absolutely.
be great.
That'd be great.
Because I'd like to hold on to these for the Historical Society meeting if possible. I don't know.
Yeah, we just need a copy
Yeah,
of
we
it.
just
Put it
need
in the
some.
file.
And Chris, we don't really have any jurisdiction over the Historical Society, so it's more of an offer to make yourself available if they would like, you know, that's what I was suggesting, I wasn't. Do you understand?
I do, I think I do.
Good.
And
And Stuart seemed to think you could have that disruption in service and make
So-
that work.
in the event that they were to remove the steeple,
Yeah,
he says that the majority of the columns would remain attached.
okay,
In which event, all of the antennas attached to columns could remain attached to columns. And the antennas above in the belfry and the cupola, or just above the belfry and the cupola, those could be either repositioned down, or there could be a temporary structure
sure.
elevated. So a solution is available.
There's a workaround.
But he was suggesting that he didn't think that they would take the steeple off.
What's the next step? Is it a formal proposal to us? Or to the, how does that happen?
I
It's not
think
for
it's the
us.
board's vote, isn't it?
I think there'll have to be a proposal, we'll come to some type of action, but the way I understand it, it would be our jurisdiction to allow that, we may have to bring it to a vote, it wouldn't hurt, we're talking about maybe having a special town meeting anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if we want to do anything public where you invite people in, and this is what we're thinking of doing, and we're in
If it's
favor of
If it's
it.
longer than 3 years, we probably really should bring it to a vote.
Right.
It's legally required if it's longer than 3 years, but you are allowed to do it if it's less than 3 years. But I would expect a 3-year contract still, just because of all the other contract lines and the Wired West goals.
I mean, I don't see that there's any reason, if we get that far, to bring it to town, you know,
Makes perfect sense.
to bring it to town meeting.
And it is just a lease that we're talking about, right? It's not whether or not we approve your rates or, I mean, that's
Yeah.
between you and the users out there. You want to use our space to do something.
My understanding is that town council will be able to advise exactly what it is technically, but it would be either a lease or a service agreement. In the event that it's a service agreement, it is my providing service to you in exchange for
Doing this.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's let the historical people.
So I'll-
find us.
I will do the historical commission, and then as far as the proposal goes, are you seeking a proposal at the next meeting?
If-
Provided that they,
I think we're playing a little bit of red light, green light. And I almost think that if you wanted to etch out what you think the basic framework of a proposal would be after you meet with the historical commission, if you had that for us, if they give you a green light, that I think that would be time for us to start looking at it.
Sounds good.
Does that sound like an appropriate step?
I don't know. I haven't
I
done
just-
this before.
I just hate to think that you're gonna come back here half a dozen more times and we're not gonna get anywhere.
I could point out also that the town of Wendell and the town of New Salem both have antennas on municipal structures, and they don't even have contracts.
They what?
They don't even have contracts. Just like you don't have a contract with Verizon. You pay them money, they give you service, you pay them money, they give you service. They were offered service in exchange for putting antennas up in the same sort of structure, best effort service. And they said, okay, because they could use service and they had a place where antennas could go. So that's the most simple
I think if
form
you,
I found thus far.
to go back to what I think the next logical step is, I think the next logical step would be, if you get a green light from the historical commission, is to etch out a proposal, and
Okay.
then we can kind of review that, and then forward it to town council to come up with whatever the agreement should be.
Okay.
Probably whatever council you have would be who she'd want to be bouncing things back and forth on.
I don't
Either
know.
either directly with you or with,
Okay.
but.
She can't represent both our interests at the same time.
Right.
She can give you friendly advice, but it's up to you to make sure your interests are secured.
Okay.
But if you give us a rough sketch and, you know, we can come together with what the outside's gonna look like.
One of the things you...
I'm pretty sure that we can give town council advice not to make it, you know, too complicated. I wanna know what time it is, I don't need to know how to go to the clock.
And she may have some input on whether she thinks we should make this some kind of a lease agreement or a service contract, as you mentioned.
I think Chris brings up a good point, is that this isn't terribly unique. We have other towns right in the same county.
I just think that if we're going to be dealing with our insurance company on property insurance and such, that they're going to want to understand the nature of our relationship. So whether it's a lease agreement or a letter agreement or something, I'd go to one of these other two towns, maybe one of them has no agreement, no contract, but maybe the other one has a very simple one-page, something that people signed off on, acknowledging the presence and so on and so forth. It would give her, our town council, a chance to mark something up and go from there. But we do, I think we need something, you know.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just suggesting that I haven't, between those are the two towns that have a very similar scenario, and neither one has any agreement. One had some bylaws adjusted to allow such a thing to happen, but that was because they had a bylaw that specifically prevented such a thing.
Now, do you have to make, is there any, have you connected with the building inspector and stuff like that at all?
I have not.
You might want to pay Hawkins a visit, just to make sure you dot your i's and cross your t's. I mean, you go putting money into something like this, and you could get a penalty, you know, and I don't think there's an issue of putting up an antenna above a certain height. And I know when we were dealing as a town with telecom and some windmills, there were some issues with height restrictions and stuff like that. So just make sure you're in conformance with the bylaws, and if you need a variance, you should go before the zoning board of appeals.
Jim Hawkins should be able to give you an opinion on it.
He's a good connection on that.
Or if you need any kind of a permit.
Well, you definitely would need a permit, I would think. Well, I don't know that.
I don't either.
Yeah,
I'm reasonably certain a permit is not required
okay.
for affixing the antennas.
You're just attaching something.
Yeah.
But then the electricity up to there,
Yeah, it's all low voltage power over Ethernet.
Coaxial cable and that sort of stuff.
just make sure you go through the proper channels.
All right.
Can you repeat that name for me?
Jim Hawkins?
Jim Hawkins, he's
Building
inspection program at FERCog.
And I'm sorry to take more time, but when you say a proposal, and you suggest that I come up with it, what I've been working along the lines of is understanding other people's contracts with various municipalities. Is the proposals that you're suggesting that I figure out simply the contract or the information associated and the contract? Figure it out. I'll figure it out.
What I'm looking for is what you want to offer to be able to run your business off of the town hall.
Okay.
You know, business is, that's what business is, right? It's good for both parties when you get all done.
Okay.
You've probably told us before, but I'm just trying to clear in my mind. they brought the fiber optics into this building, right?
Yes.
So you're gonna tie on the fiber optics and go up, and that's the antenna part, but it also needs some kind of electricity in addition to the fiber optics.
It does.
Right, thank you.
To get it from here to there and out and back.
Well, the fiber optics is not enough, it's only part.
Yeah, but, yeah, that, I'll, of course, include that sort of information, but for your information now, these antennas use on the order of 7 watts, 7 to 10 watts. A cell phone antenna setup will use over a kilowatt, or 1,000 watts each. Maybe depending on the scenario, but we're talking orders of magnitude. So maybe like $2 a month, $1 a month worth of electricity for this sort of setup versus a cellular antenna setup. But that'll be included.
Good. My next question is, can I take advantage of it personally? So, but I'll wait.
Wait a minute, so if he has to run electrical up and check with Jim Hawkins,
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
I mean, somehow there's an electrical inspector in here, so
Yeah.
I'm concerned
Huh?
for you about it.
I would not be running line voltage outlets anywhere on anybody's structure.
Yeah, the electrical he's talking about is, you don't get a building permit to put in an outlet in your house. Right?
It would be calling the appropriate
That's-
electrician or whatever the appropriate procedures are, getting a single outlet, and then everything else is low voltage DC, so it does not require any permits.
And there's electricity up there anyway.
Yeah,
For the horn.
Oh, all right, there's,
It's,
Right?
Okay.
There's already.
it's just that there's a little bit of perspective to understand it.
I was bringing wire from the basement.
I had a 220 line going up there.
So we could then break it down.
well, even if you were, that's not a building permit. kind
You
of
don't
thing.
need anything,
No.
just to do.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Sorry to keep you waiting so long.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, so last week, or 2 weeks ago, we talked about maybe using some trust funds.
Yes.
So I had a copy of this at home. I forgot to bring it in. But I have one of these on each side. On the page I'm showing you on the top, it lists the accounts that have been gifted to the town for certain things. And you can, the first column, starting on the left after the person's name, is the original amount that was deposited.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can go across, well, if you go all the way to the right, it's going to tell you what the balance is
Because of
As
new
of-
contributions?
as of June 30th. Well, it's been accruing interest
From this amount?
from
Yeah.
that amount.
Wow.
So in this particular case, it's gone from $7,350 to almost $42,000.
Well, the next one down from $200 to $8,000. Wow.
So these have some time on them. As you can
Yeah,
guess,
I
you
can
know,
imagine.
if
Ben
you-
Franklin time.
If you apply the rule of 72, it's doubled quite a few times, you know, the interest rate must have been pretty good. So, Mary, you have more of the detail on it than I do, but these have been researched in very recent times.
Oh, yes, yeah, no, they've been recently researched pretty thoroughly. Nancy Garland did a lot of work on the original, pulling the detail together. And of course, Laura keeps a running tally.
Right. So, it's kind of interesting, and I didn't read through these in great length, but it talks about how they were set up, and it's really pretty interesting. I mean, that William Hathaway, that one was to be held in trust. to use for the benefit of needy children. You know, I direct, however, that before any payments are made from the income of this trust fund for such purpose, $20 is to be used each year on Memorial Day for the purchase of flowers, to be placed on Mrs. Alvin Hathaway and William Hathaway lots in the center cemetery. You know, so there's quite, you know, some of them have a lot of rules, some of them don't seem to have hardly any. But what came marked out is the one marked Whiting Street. The Whiting Street, Will? So that was originally $1,500. Actually, this was to quite a few different towns, because it says none of the before-mentioned towns or cities shall receive any sum either as income or principal under the provisions of this will. In other words, you can't draw it down further than $1,500. And what's the balance on that now?
It's 10,000.
10,500. Legal meeting call for personal principal funds and did. Come on, where is it? I'm trying not to read the whole thing.
Go with the bottom, to accept the legacy of this town and the
To accept
Whiting
the-
Street
Yeah.
for the relief of the
Of the worthy poor of this town, who shall not be in the almshouse nor be town paupers, upon the term conditions set forth in said will. So it's saying that, you know, folks that are worthy, that are in need. I mean, that's the way I would read it. And the selectmen represent the town and its agents in all matters relating to the will of Whiting Street with full power to act for the town, as in their judgment may be expedient. So the rules and research and so forth would lead you to believe that there's no big hoops to run through as far as if we wanted to expend some of this money to these folks that lost their house, deed to others. So, I guess the question is, do we feel that's a worthy use of this money? There's certainly an adequate balance in the account. And what, if it is, what number of dollars should we expend?
Did you have some thoughts you want to share with us?
Well, I originally thought $1,000 would be appropriate.
What do you think that tax bill was?
Then I got thinking about how far $1,000 doesn't go.
Yeah.
But we can't, you know, we're not an insurance company either, but I think as much as anything, it would help. I mean, when you lose pretty much everything, anything and everything's a help, you know. And I think probably as much as anything, just knowing that people are aware.
Family of 4?
3.
3.
Really? I thought they had a number of kids.
One passed away in 3 years.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember just how long
I seem to recover.
So that was my original thought, was $1,000, but there's $10,534.68 in that account. And that's really not a terribly old account. That started at that started at $1,500. So yeah, it's been around for a while.
I think what you just said, that's why I was kind of asking how many people. Not to be wild with the money, but when you get 1,200, it's like 400 for each person, and 400 does not go very far if you just go to the store to replace your sneakers and some shoes and an overcoat and a shirt and a pair of pants. And that would be like $400 for each person in my mind. how I got to that number.
So were you saying 1,200?
It's with 1,000, so I was making it a little bit larger just to
Yeah, I'd
come
go
up
with
with a
it.
number.
Don't let me hold you back when you're making a recommendation.
No, that's what I was just trying to think of a number and what would you do with it? And you're right, every quarter helps when everything's gone. And it's easy to spend and just be getting basics.
I think anything would be appreciated. I think in today's dollars, to make a significant contribution to their awful plight, I'd feel more comfortable with like a couple $1,000, just be done with it at that point. I mean, it doesn't really even buy that much, $2,000. And I don't think it's overly extravagant either. I don't want to look for an insurance company or anything, but it might pay a portion of their tax bill, you know, and it's not going to go over the top, that's for sure.
Because
That
when
was-
you have no house and you still must pay that tax bill for the rest of that year. Been there, done that, it's like, what? Now, the next year, it gets evaluated as not very much, but
Right.
that year, you must finish that tax bill for the last 2 quarters.
I'm not opposed to whatever you guys want to do. I mean, I really am not. I mean, I came up with that 1,000, and as I told you, even I came to realize without somebody telling me, without my wife telling me that isn't very much money, so I certainly would go with 1,200, I would certainly go to 1,500, I am not outlawing the idea of 2,000, I mean, in this town, I don't know the last time we took some money out of these accounts.
Well, I would just go to 1,500, let's make it easy.
And I'm not afraid of establishing a precedence because you don't, this is not the kind of thing you expect that you're going to have one every week. Even if there were another unforeseeable event of this kind, it's not like they're...
I mean, not all these trust funds could be used so openly for this, but you do have to notice that there's $173,509 out
Off of
there.
how much initially? It's like 18,000?
$19,000.
Yeah.
This Whiting Street, and I noticed it mentions Holyoke in there.
It
I
sounds like,
wonder if it's the Whiting...
It is, he's related to the same writings.
Yeah, because I noticed it said
so it must have
Holyoke.
been quite a bit of money spread around to quite a few communities.
Yeah,
It's quite
by the
nice.
looks of things.
So what do you guys want to go with, 2,000, 1,500?
I'll make a motion, we allocate 1,500.
I'll second.
A second?
Yeah.
And I think a letter from the select board would be appropriate. Because I mean, just to get a check seems kind of weird.
Right. Yeah, you can draft one up, Mary. Go.
Do we have anything we want to say in it? Specific words that we're interested in including?
I think just any.
On behalf of the town, we're doing it?
I think it.
We hope this helps.
Yes.
So,
So there's a motion and a second for $1,500 to direct the treasurer to draw $1,500 from the Whiting Street Trust Fund.
And-
Draft the letter.
and I guess my question is, I can draft a letter to send it, and send it on behalf of the select board. I can have the chair sign it, or we can hold it all up to the next meeting.
I don't think we should hold it up.
I don't think we should hold it up a second.
Yeah.
So I'll just,
On behalf of the select board.
That'd be great.
That'd be fine.
Yep.
All right,
I'll second it if it hasn't been.
it's been seconded.
Great.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, we've done a lot of those tonight. Good deal. Huh?
Just looking at the dates.
Oh, yeah, it's really interesting.
1875.
Really interesting reading. All right, we got that taken care of. You know, it's getting to that hour again where our best work probably would be done as Paulette puts it on the personnel policies, but we've got to set a night aside to do it. What What do you think? You guys are the,
First on the next meeting, instead of
okay.
at the end, would that
Well,
help?
then I
Or
go-
do you wanna
then I
do
go
a
and jump
special one?
around. I go and jump around.
Well, that's true. Do you want a
Let-
special night just to do that and do the whole book?
Oh, that'd be too much. I've done the pages, I forgot my book. I've actually done the chapters that we agreed to a number of weeks ago, and I'm glad you guys are putting it off, because I had a few small edits, not much, but you'd have to go without me on tonight.
Okay.
So I think we should do the first assignment. If you want to pile another one on, I'm okay with that
We'll
too.
do it right up. Let's get we've been so long
1
trying to
through
get
6.
1 through 6, and there'll be other business that we'll want to take care of
Yep,
before that. But we'll put it towards the front of the pile.
at the
Like,
next
It'll be the
meeting.
first thing
pay
under
the
new business.
bills, approve
I
the
mean, the
minutes.
first thing under old business. Only warrants, minutes if you choose to do them, and then appointment with town clerk.
Well, we're expecting, Chris Gray to come back in 2 weeks, so he might be back.
He's used to waiting.
Oh, it's me.
So the other note, we kind of want to go through this. We don't want to have it appear that when it happens that it's, we're trying to do it last minute. But in your folder, there's a list of.
Yeah, I didn't get it.
Oh, did I not get into
I
that?
didn't get
List
that.
of-
If not, I've got them here.
Yeah.
Let me just pass them out.
Items for proposed special
Yep.
town meeting. I'm sorry.
I was doing those and I didn't get it in there.
When is the special?
It came in, so I
We
had
haven't
to.
set a date, good, but we haven't set a date. Mary had called me a couple of times.
March 10th is a suggestion, because what we try to do is coordinate with town clerk on back up how many days for voter registration and when that will fall, when it doesn't conflict with other things, so that's one suggestion.
Is that like our normal meeting nights, or do you have?
It is.
Um, So you can kind of go down through there.
So it would be the second Monday in March.
Why am I feeling that I'm missing an expense report here from
They did go out. I have a printed copy of
Is it February 3rd, our first meeting with the finance committee?
it. It is.
Oh, I've got an Ashfield expense report. It's under yours now. It came up under. So, the wastewater treatment plant, you can see they've got an issue with an operator that hasn't used any vacation.
Wow.
The biggest single reason for that is not being able to find alternate operators. So although this would certainly be an exception to what our personnel policy is, there's a case to be made for it, and I think we're not necessarily the ones to make the case for it, but this would be money voted out of enterprise funds.
And the sewer commissioners did vote to request.
The second item also has to do with the wastewater treatment. It says 10 to 15,000. Speaking to one of the sewer commissioners, they're thinking that maybe it would be more like a $6,000 or $7,000
Really?
pickup. because instead of getting a new, or a very new truck, they would probably get something. This is only a pickup that gets about 1,000 miles a year.
So they want something like up to as opposed to must spend.
But it would be enterprise fund money to go into that. Number 3 is Dell for the fire department. And this would be really to cover some of the expenses for this fire that we're just talking about.
And he's
Right,
got,
the extra expenses?
It would be just for that fire, the payroll for that fire, because that was such a long and extensive one that it looks like it won't fit within the...
and it's not, we're not putting on here to shift the monies for him that accidentally got separated. And we talked about doing that for him, I thought, in the spring.
These are just issues, this isn't really identifying, this isn't fine tuning it
Oh,
yet.
okay,
This is just
okay.
identifying a list of things.
I was surprised not to see that, so
Well,
that's okay.
well, no, follow your thoughts and we can add it to the list.
And you're talking about breaking,
The fuel and the utilities, as I recall, some of the expenses got separated out, and the year before it had been in one pot, which
And
gave us...
the reason I didn't put that on this list yet is because I do know he was interested in that. I do know that the accountant thinks that that is going to be difficult to do, so I really need
I
to...
can't figure out why, it's just a matter of moving the money, I mean, it's just a matter of
Backing it out.
moving, yeah, I mean, they're just journal entries or something of that ilk to put it all back into one account.
Well, I think probably that would be more of an issue myself. I mean, I don't have a problem adding that to the list as number 10 for us to review.
I think
It's
we
not
told
like
him we
it's-
would, yes.
But since we have to revisit his budget anyway because of these occurrences, we may address it anyway. You know, it could be a difference, it could end up being a difference with no distinction, is what I'm getting at. And I think when we get a little bit closer, when we get a month down the road and we're able to look at the expenses, we may say there's 3 or 4 different places that need some money.
Because I think it's just a matter of utilities and fuel, as I recall,
But we may take care of that all in one.
and the fire department expenses just all going back together is where it was.
Yeah, I think when we really look at it, we may find that if we hadn't come back for any other reason, come back to the fire department for any other reason, that probably is something that may need to be massaged, but I think since we're revisiting it anyway, 3/4 of the way through the fiscal year, I mean, we're doing very well. I'm very proud that we've only had one special town meeting this year. I think we've done great trying to set a budget and stay with it. So for us to go through and fine tune some of these things as the year's about 3/4 done, I think we're doing great.
Good. Can I ask a question? You guys have moved on beyond the enterprise fund. How does the enterprise fund work again? It's totally reimbursable, right?
It's all sewer fees.
Yeah.
All those fees and all the money that goes into that, the sewer commissioners have control of expending that.
Where
As
is
per
it in
their
our
budget.
budget versus
It would
actual?
be a supplemental sheet. to
Oh,
that.
it would, okay. So I assume that if it says, one of them says approved by the sewer commissions and the second one says approval commissioners, does it?
It's just my language here.
Oh,
It's, the
was it
sewer
approved?
commissioners are behind both of those.
Oh, okay, good.
First one, they
I'm also,
in some pieces of paper, the second one, they're
I mean, I don't have that paperwork in front of me,
Yep.
but the last time I saw, I think there's roughly $90,000
Oh.
of surplus revenue for
well, they have to approve it, I mean, right? Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to pull you off.
No, that's fine. Veterans benefit, this is our obligation, so that number can probably be fine-tuned between now and then. ZBA has a small balance, I mean, we may decide that go, you know, whatever that needs. If we go if we go March 10th, we have until about February 25th to post the warrant, right?
Yeah.
We got 14 days right now.
Just a quick, enterprise fund has $86,970 in it currently.
How much?
$86,970.
That wasn't too far.
No.
So the radio maintenance, there's a small difference there. And I think when we have a discussion, which we will between now and when we have to post a warrant with the finance committee may say, you know, instead of having a special town meeting, let's just take it out of reserve fund. I mean, I hope they would make it that simple. We did want to do this transfer, we spoke about it anyway. And I still think it's need to take that Fred Cross money for the painting and reimburse the firehouse so we can keep moving on the projects that are here. And we may decide that we need a little bit more from another source. We'll probably get some idea of how much can get accomplished maybe and what from the building committee and what the cost may be. But these are all. And then we're going to find out about this fire truck damage.
This is from that freezing at that fire, that cold.
Yeah, water and water pipes at 15 below zero just don't work well. And I guess one thing that's going to have to be on here, and March 10th would be a great time to take it up, is we've gone through 60% of winter roads as of the one we just signed. 57.76%. So there's only, it's not the 1st of February and we've only gone through, we only have $36,000 left out of 86,000. So March, 1st of March will probably be a good time to look at that and know how much more needs to go into that.
And 6 weeks between now and then, you can have some interesting weather.
And right, I mean, it can be good, it can be bad, it can be both.
What's the
Sounds like
problem
this
with-
is going to be a pretty good week, I think.
I don't see any.
Isn't it the one exception for deficit spending? I mean, what would be the problem with just running it up and then fix it? You know, I mean, if we had that allowance, rather than try to second guess it, you might get a couple snowstorms and still, but it's a conservative approach to stay ahead of it, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, we can discuss that. It may be 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I think as we're working through the budget, if we clear that balance, it gives us a clearer idea of what we have to work with.
Because we generally hope to avoid having to have an end of fiscal year special town meeting just before the annual town meeting cleanup.
Yep.
If possible.
I think that would be
Right, because then that leaves you with the June one.
yeah, you're gonna
At
have
the very end of June or something.
probably, but I think we can clean up, you know, polish the doorknobs on quite a few of these accounts. Maybe if the planning board wants to do something on zoning, they'd be thinking at the same time.
I think that will go to an annual town meeting. I did ask them if they would be interested in special town, they won't be ready for it.
Let me ask a question. I was going to talk about this at a liaison meeting, but it's appropriate here, is that at some point, we need to enter into an agreement with Scott Decker and the Nolans. And I've met with both of them in the past week, and I've gotten the next draft of the dam access and maintenance easement deed. And she's also, I don't have it here tonight, but she's also giving me the article, the suggested words to go before the town. Then there's the Sherry Scott boundary line agreement, which is its own separate issue. And I just got that today, but I haven't had a chance to review it. So those are two things that we could kind of
I think
put
business,
behind us.
I think that business would be great. I mean, God knows annual town meeting goes on long
This
enough.
has too many articles.
I mean, if there's some business that we can get out of the way, if we're having a special town meeting.
So if I could bring those next week, is that appropriate timing? I have some to give you tonight to get you thinking about it.
Yeah, if you could get them, I think we had them discussed, don't you call that? In 2 weeks, it would be great. 2 weeks after that would still be fine.
Yes, I agree with that. I hear what you're saying about not being a annual town meeting, but part of me knows that in terms of attendance, you're gonna have more people, and should it be an annual town meeting? It's a question, not a statement.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
And, but yes, if you've got the wording and you can forward it, Ron, that would be fine. I'd agree. I mean, it doesn't hurt to look at it now, regardless of which meeting we're putting it at.
Really looks to me if we kind of agree that we, with the March 10th date, which I don't know if anybody has any issues with that, we would probably want to sign the warrant when we came into a budget meeting on February 17th. We'd have to post it prior to the 24th or on the 24th. It'd have to be posted on the morning of the 24th of February.
So we were scheduled to meet on the 24th, that's too late.
Right.
But we have a meeting on the 10th, and you're saying maybe even the 17th.
Right, we could go as late as that.
Because every other week is with the finance committee, so steal some time and sign.
Right.
Just to let you guys know, I will not be here on the 10th. We're going to go up to Oregon and visit my grandchild, so
That's great.
FYI.
Oh.
So I'm sorry about that.
No, that's great. But you're bringing up a good point.
When you said you were going away sometime.
I'm going away next week, which we don't meet
Oh.
anyway. Oh, I will be here the 10th. I will be here. I've got a couple of things scheduled, but I'll make it back from Lake.
So I'll definitely be dropping off this stuff on the 27th, because I don't know if we are meeting on the 17th, and if we do, or any other time, I've got other time too.
Yeah, we may as well get that if we want that, but we need to start building those. Building that. And maybe just a short note, Mary, if you wouldn't mind emailing Ted and the finance committee, and just tell them.
This is what we're looking at, this is the date we're looking at,
This
and
is-
we would be looking at it with them on the 17th.
Yeah, a number, but we'll be discussing it before that too, because we'll be meeting with them.
Right, so discuss it.
But just to put it on their agenda, that they're thinking that we've got some housekeeping.
Wasn't it March 17th? Ted said he was going to be gone, which is after that.
Yeah, it's March, is that 15th or the 7th?
Because we were talking about having all the meetings.
He had a day that he was missing.
I thought it was March 17th, because I confused it with February. So that's good, it's after the 10th.
But if we send that email out, we'll know, right? People will have a chance to respond.
Exactly.
Okay. And maybe the thing to do, I mean, I'm gonna do it. I would hope, yeah, I'm sure you will, is to go through the expense report, and there may be places, instead of taking some of this money from free cash that we might need, that we're gonna say, hey,
I think there
we're
are,
not expending any amount close to what we appropriated, and we actually pay for it. But we'll have one more expense report through before we have to fine tune that. All right? Anything else? Any other business tonight?
I have just a few short liaison things to hand out.
Okay.
These relate to 1, 2, 3, 4, so
Everybody can share in the fun?
everyone can share in the fun. These are all drafts that came from Donna. They're all, each one is a package, yeah, there you go. So, just to let you know what you're looking at, the three things here, one thing is missing because I forgot. One is a dam access and maintenance easement for Scott Decker. The next one is a dam access and maintenance easement for the Nolans. And the third is an agreement to retain certain trees on or near Ashfield Lake Dam. And the very first one, just quickly, is, if you recall, we were interested in two things on both these properties. One is there's an existing driveway that goes up to the dry hydrant that was never properly recorded. So while we were doing the maintenance agreement, the 20-foot strip, it made sense to do that. So I kind of rolled them in together. And these are words that actually came from town council. So this is her work now. She's pretty much drafted this up. I initially brought some stuff to her, but this doesn't look like what I brought to her. It's much more professional. And the same is here with the Nolans. And that's for the 20-foot strip along the dam.
Yeah.
And because that access road crosses their property too. So this way it'll document it properly. And then the third thing, just to bring to your attention quickly, is this, she calls them 5 stately trees, 1, 2, 3 paragraphs down. Where's the trustees? They are the trustees. It's the Nolan, trustee, family trust or whatever. Whereas the trustees are desirous of having the town retain 5 stately trees located on the dam or with the maintenance, or within, that should say within, so that needs to be edited. I will do that. Within the maintenance easement, see dam access and maintenance easement deed is recorded at the Franklin County Registry of Deeds at Ashfield Lake in said town. So they have these 5 trees. I think it's 3 oaks, an ash, and a birch tree maybe, or something like that. Not a birch tree, but a different tree there. And some of them are on the town.
Before you make that change, read that carefully, because I almost think with the maintenance agreement is right.
Say that again?
You were going to make an adjustment there.
Right.
I think you want to read that before you go making that adjustment. Instead of it's referring to the maintenance agreement, right?
It's referring to this one here.
With the maintenance.
Within, it's supposed to say within the maintenance agreement.
Okay.
Within the 20 feet of the maintenance agreement. So some of these trees are on the dam itself, and some are on Nolan's land within the maintenance agreement.
All right, okay. All right, that's fine. Maybe, again, it's a difference without any distinction, really.
Maybe I'm missing your point.
Well, I just thought with the maintenance agreement, it's located on the dam or with the maintenance agreement.
Within, it's supposed to say within that area.
Okay.
So, and then they say, if you look down retention of the trees, there's a paragraph here I'm going to draw your attention to, but it says that the town hereby agrees to retain the 5 trees atop Ashfield Dam and Ashfield Lake, and so long as the trees are not diseased, damaged, or ordered by the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation, Office of Dam Safety, or any other agency with jurisdiction thereof to remove said trees. In the event that tree removal is required, the parties agree the town shall pay for the removal. The trustees hereby agree not to interfere with the removal of the trees. So the whole purpose of this is, in our inspection reports, they said that you need to remove the trees.
Yep.
And when we visited with Ty and Bond, they said, yeah, it sounds like a reasonable thing that as long as those trees stay in good health, that they're so beautiful, they're just, they give them shade and everything, and it's really great. But we can't guarantee that the Office of Dam Safety will go along with this. So I visited with Phil and Doreen, and they're okay with this. You know, as long as we try to keep those trees there, as long as we can, they're,
Deckers and Nolan's, they've seen these?
they've seen these just this last week, and so has Scott, and they're fine, they're ready to sign. So we also have that article that would allow us to sign, enter into that agreement. So I don't have the article in front of me, I just simply forgot it, my apologies. I'll bring it next week, completed. And then there's the Sherry Scott side of things too that I'm reporting to you guys on. And I just got it today before I walked in here, so I don't have anything to say. Hopefully those two things are good.
I want to tell you how much I appreciate the work that you've done on this, because if we can get this accomplished, it'll be a huge step to that list of 5 or 6 things that we talked about in May that we wanted to accomplish, so good, that's great.
Well, they're real generous, both of these people. I mean, they could say, you know, you have to buy it from me or something. We'd have to enter into eminent domain. But they're both very caring about the town, both parties, so it was good.
Just a question, you
Yeah.
were talking about maybe someplace else there's money. What's become, or what are we saving still, the narrowband mandate?
We decided
$9,000
we carried that over. It was appropriated the prior year because we think it's coming from the state. And then we decided to encumber and carry it through because we still have a need for an antenna for the radio gaps that we have. I have just
I
wondering.
knew there was something we had talked about.
And so
I never really got a really good explanation of what it was about to begin with.
it was State Form sent out, they listed our emergency communication radios, said they all needed to be switched to another band, gave us an estimate of the cost, and then it turned out that COG had 7 Homeland Security money that was going to do some of that, but what they couldn't help us with was a tower. Now, this wouldn't get us to a tower, but it might be part of what would, so we could go anyway on that long one, but
At some point, we should decide to fish or cut bait. On that, that's a good point.
Well, now that you say that, possibly using that money, because they were talking about Plainfield, that we might have to buy a little bit of equipment to get access.
So Tom Poissant this morning gave me a little update on the grader. It's probably a little longer than 3 weeks away that I spoke about 2 weeks ago. Because the update is that the grader is being built. Well, let's back up. Tom likes to talk to us about the trucks and the equipment and so forth, that it has to pass the new super duper EPA emissions deal. So it was like stage 2 and stage 3, and now they're skipping stage 4, and they're calling it a stage 4, 5, whatever. So anyway, to do all this, it ends up that the machine's being built. From the discussion he had, he thinks the whole machine is being built in Brazil, but I asked, is it just the engine or the whole machine? He says, it's at least the engine. He says, I'm feeling like it's the whole machine, but it's in production, but they're still saying it's going to be 6 or 8 weeks. No, it's going to be March before we see the season. So, but the wing is all on the old one. So if we get a lot, he says, boy, I'd hate to run it and break it. But, you know, that is set up to move snow. So we're working on, hey, if it's not here, we don't have to pay for it yet.
That's true.
That's all.
And it'll last that much longer because we're not using it.
Yeah. Oh, some mail. Steve Tebow?
Well,
Oh, so we have a letter here from Steve Tebow. Guess I'll read it to you. It says, I've been a resident of Ashfield since 1958. In 1997, I purchased land on West Road, 12.2 acres, bordering on the former Kelly Brothers farm, now owned by Paul Milani and Jamie Young. In '84, I built a home and cleared a couple acres of land. All road care stopped about 500 feet beyond my house, just after my neighbor's house. That was the house that Fred Reese built. I have seen at least 3 road bosses during this time, but the condition of the road has never been as bad as it is right now. Main Street was ground up and put down several years ago, which made a temporary improvement, but since then, a new mixture, heavy and clay, has been applied, which now results in a horrendous mess. Places that have always been negotiable are no longer so. Traditionally, road closed signs go up at the corner of Steady Lane. When that happens, newspaper and mail delivery stops. There are often long periods of time when emergency vehicles cannot make it down our road. It's clear to me that what is needed is stone. The road crew spends a lot of time regrading the road. They're doing it today. But this lasts only a short time. It's a case of penny wise and pound foolish. I think if you polled the residents of the dirt portion of West Road, you'd find they would agree with the contents of this letter. Stephen E. Tebow. January 13th. Guess that's my first complaint about a muddy road, so that's maybe a record. I don't know if I've ever had one quite that early that I've known about, but.
I have not been down, so my concern would be more
According to
the
his letter,
muddy, maybe it's got some pretty deep ruts, as opposed to just muddy.
according to his letter and all that, I wouldn't take my nice Cadillac down that road. Yeah, no, I think it probably is, and I mean, when you think about the weather that we've had,
It's been
you
tough
know,
on roads.
a lot of cold, a lot of rain, a lot of thawing. I don't know exactly how you get around this.
and that's just a report from Bill.
That's just a report of what they've been doing. This is to kind of justify what he's been, about the fire department. It's just kind of log of all the calls and so forth that they're on.
So far this year, does he have a total there?
Starts January 13th.
Okay.
Yeah. and
Does he,
Yeah.
what time does he have the summary?
Busiest times are 9 to noon. Total fire calls 71, medical calls 92, total calls 163. So. You want copies of that, Mary?
No, that's okay. I know usually he does this something.
Oh, is there anything else that we should bring up tonight?
2 short things, if I can.
Go ahead.
Just in glancing this over, and I do want to get the actual audit or the review, Mary, so I can go in there and probably get it out of a box somewhere. But they're talking about 2 significant deficiencies in here. Are we going to talk, I know you guys haven't had a chance to look at it, I was just glancing it over, but they talk about 2 of them and then flip to those 2 and they talk about a number of concerns.
Page
What's
eight
the,
on.
What's that?
What page do you want?
The address to the deficiency is on page 3. It's that single line there.
Oh, okay.
And then it flips you over to 2012-1 is on the next page. That's where they describe the deficiency. And then the next page is the second deficiency. And I guess my question is just format. This is a management letter, so they're coming to us as the executor of the town. And what do? Do we meet with the finance committee on these, or do we meet on our own and discuss it?
I would think the first thing I would do, and since you have liaison with the town hall staff,
Yeah?
is I would get together with them
Okay.
and say, because they're the ones that, I believe they've gone back and forth with the auditors and polished this
Yeah.
up, and you can come up with some idea of what has been addressed and what needs to be addressed, and if there's a mechanism that we can help them with.
Okay.
I would assume that would be it. I got mine last Thursday, I haven't read it,
Okay.
I didn't bring it tonight, but I would think that that
So I'll
would be the
report
first
back to
thing.
you on that then, to the board. Theoretically, I know,
That's the way I would approach it, Paula. What do you, that's,
Well, I was just looking, because they've already got some town response information on these.
I think that would be
Okay.
a great way to do it, is to.
I mean, the idea is not to have this show up a second year in a row. So they point out a deficiency, you cure the deficiency and go forward, so I will,
Make room for another one.
yeah, exactly. The second thing I wanted to ask you guys about is, the 15th, we have a meeting here by Tyne and Bond. 7 to 8, this is going to be about the lake, and I know that the Sanderson trustees are going to join us for the 8 to 9 section. My question to you is, and the finance board should be here, they've been
They
invited.
posted a meeting.
What's that?
They've posted a meeting.
Okay, so I know that the presentation is going to be a PowerPoint presentation. I think we have a screen now, is that right?
There's a screen in my
Okay,
office.
so this isn't too conducive to, the way we're set up here, since I'm trying to help Ty and Barn in the physical building. Should we all sit in the audience, and how do you want to do this?
I
question.
may not be here for it.
Mhm.
I haven't quite figured out my schedule yet. I may, but I'm really thinking I may not.
But Ron can open a meeting, we don't have to be sitting at the table. If there's a way to organize this better so that they can show what they need to show, we could sit in, we've done that before, I think, sit in the audience.
Are you
and
comfortable
open-
with that then?
Sure.
So then I'll
Set it
pick up all
whatever
these
works.
tables, and I will let them, I'll put a table in the middle so that they can have a projector. We'll probably put a screen here,
Mhm.
and I'll introduce them and give a little brief thing on it, and then we'll let it, and then we'll open our meeting if you're there,
Right,
and
finance committee.
Finance Committee has to open theirs.
Is
If
anybody
there's a
else
quorum.
coming? Did
If there's a
anybody else
quorum.
post their meeting to be there?
I don't, there may have been one other, I'm not sure who, but I've also talked to some others who may be here, may have a quorum, but aren't going to post a meeting, they'll just sit separately as, not deliberate or anything. They'll
Because
just-
I know Ted's not gonna be here, he's in
Right.
Puerto Rico or wherever.
Right, so, and I did post the meeting so that it could continue even if there wasn't a quorum of the select board. In other words, the select board is hosting it,
Right.
but there is no regular select board business at all.
Just that meeting,
Just
just
that.
time bar, yeah, okay.
So they'll have in the presentation the parts of the proposals that they've sent us on both the field and the Ashfield Lake. But I've handed out the proposals in the past, so you might want to bring them, but I think they're going to be in the actual presentation for your information. And they went out to the Finance Committee too, those same proposals, I sent them. So people should have them. I'm not going to have a lot of handouts, it'll just be a PowerPoint presentation and an informative session.
Sounds good.
We'll go from there.
So
Okay,
they're gonna do the lake first, 7 to 8, and then
I believe that's the
field
order.
is
That's
8
And
to
then 8
9.
to 9 is a field.
Okay.
And then we'll close our meeting and okay. I'm all set, thanks.
the only other things, and I'm bringing this up because the time is ticking as of today. We got an email today from Deb Nicholson, and it looks like it's a public records request. There's a lot. There's a lot to it.
But weren't we just a CC as far as the select board
Well,
is concerned?
But at some point, they're gonna have to come to the select board. I'm wondering if we need to ask for an extension on being able to do this. Because this is, I mean, the amount of information, regardless of, I mean, Dell's not a full-time employee. I mean, he might have got a raise, but he's not a full-time employee with the staff to do some of this.
Now, Mayor,
I don't know, did you?
I haven't seen that, no.
Okay, well, it's, when it gets down to the public records portion of it, it says consequently based on life safety issues that have transpired recently at the Ashfield House Apartments for various unknown causes, I am requesting a full copy of the complete signed fire construction documents for the Ashfield House project.
if I may
Yes.
interject, just because Dell and I sat and read that together and tried to parse it this afternoon, it was complicated. We interpreted it that there are 3 bold sections at the end, and that the first 2 are actually addressed to the housing authority, and that only the 3rd one is addressed to the fire chief, the one that asks for the logs. And so the intention is to only answer that piece of it.
Well, the 3rd one, see, it goes back to a time when I'm not sure who was the inspectors on this. Because, you know, we had building inspector, but I'm trying to remember if you want complete and you go back to the beginning, who the electrical and plumbing inspectors were, because it says, I am also requesting every complete signed permit, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, gas, etc., for the heating system, only for the heating system changeover. Every complete signed heating system changeover to propane. Okay, so I was taking that too far. I was thinking that we were going back to the beginning like we were in the first paragraph. But.
And you know that this doesn't have to be responded to with the actual information in that amount of days. It just, a response has to be generated saying when they're going to get it reasonably to this individual. So, I mean, I'm very clear on that because I've asked that question a number of times to a number of authorities, and it's what is reasonably expected with the resources that you have and the amount of data they're looking for.
Well, I mean, it's, and I'm not downplaying, you know, Paulette and I had discussed about the CO2 meters and so, you know, the
Well, they went
CO2
off again, I guess.
And, well, it's, you know, there's quite a lot of preface. It does talk about despite public statements by me, and I don't know what public statement that was, but whatever.
And so all of that would not be addressed. What we would do is supply the logs.
Well, there needs
Because
to be a
the full letter itself is not a...
It's a narrative.
Right.
Recent historical narrative.
Who's the 2 on that? Because the CC,
That's
Right,
right.
it's CC to the town, but it's to the housing authority.
Well,
it's to the housing authority.
yeah, but the last
But
part.
the last one clearly is
The
something...
last part is I want a full copy of the Ashfield Fire Department log records for the 23rd and 24th. Which maybe that's not so hard to get. This is to include all correspondence to and from Bernstein and Minor, the select board, or anyone from Franklin County Inspector.
Is the expectation that we answer that directly, or is that still being sought from the housing people?
No, I think our interpretation was that that piece
Needed to be answered.
needed to be answered directly.
Okay.
And I don't believe the housing authority would have any obligation to contact an outside agency to get records to provide.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and they couldn't provide records out of thin air. They'd have to come to the source, which would be the fire chief, so.
Right.
I just want us to be aware that it just seems, however it can be handled, it seemed like a big undertaking.
Yeah.
Aren't you going to just provide an estimate of the cost initially and request that they pay that before you produce anything?
That is probably the
That's
first.
what they do.
History would say that once you've done that, that'll be the end of it.
It says, please forward an estimate for payment within 10 days. All right, well, I didn't want it to fall by the wayside, but I wanted to make sure that it was addressed some way that it needs to be
But
addressed.
that's the only piece that belongs to the town. The rest of the stuff that's being sought after is from the housing authority people to supply? And so they'll answer
I
that
suppose
part
it all
of it?
depends, I suppose it all depends on interpretation. But yes, I certainly quite a bit of it is for the housing authority.
But you're right, it's not entirely clear. I mean, one of the things we discussed is you could reply and say we need a clearer request.
There's nothing wrong with doing that either.
No,
That's been
we
discussed,
discussed
that we don't
It's-
understand
It's
your
pretty
request.
clear, it's just trying to figure out where it's gonna come from.
Yeah, but
Well, that's
when
what
someone says
you
two, 5 different parties, I mean,
Right, it
That's
doesn't,
unreasonable.
it's not in the form that we would have to accept.
yeah.
Well, I'm not trying to, I just wanna make sure it's taken care of since we're not gonna meet for 2 weeks. So, and I said that publicly, so is there anything else? Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second?
second.
It is.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's 10:53.